It's okay, I can cut the intro a little bit. I usually cut the beginning here. Oh, you have notes.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Did you review this when this came out?
I wrote down, letterboxed reviews just because I thought we were going to do this a lot fucking sooner than we actually did.
Yeah, you know. Hey, everybody!
Oh, right, we're recording. Yeah.
Welcome to the Josh and Tyler show. Oh, my goodness. Tyler show. I'm having trouble saying words today. I realize this.
Clearly, but... That should tell you how long it's been since we've last sat here. Last time we were talking about the Oscar nominations and how, they were.
If you're watching this while the Oscar nominations are happening, that's because you're probably not an Oscar fan, or with the Oscars, because this will be going up Sunday night. So.
Not anymore.
Yeah, what are we talking about today, Tyler?
We are talking about...
The Chronicles of Narnia! I had to do that really loud. That was a little more awkward than I expected.
That was good timing.
That was good, though. Yeah, no, that was...
My face was perfectly timed for the strangeness and just how fucking ridiculous that was. It wasn't until 5 minutes ago that I even realized that was a thing.
I just... Lazy Sunday popped up on my feed, and I thought, this is the time to talk about Cupcakes and the Chronicles of Narnia.
Would it even been better if we were doing this on Sunday, wouldn't it?
Well, this goes up on Sunday, so technically, this is Sunday. But,
Sunday, day of worship, perfect for this source material.
So, do you ever watch these movies in theaters, like when they first came out, or...?
I never actually saw these in theaters, which was interesting, but my introduction to it was when I had spare time in grade 4, I would usually spend more time doing, other stuff as opposed to schoolwork or homework or anything like that. And one day I just happened to find the first book that was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it was the first book that I still remember to this day actually getting sucked into in regards to the universe. I loved learning about the lore. I loved the illustrations that were in the copies of the books that I had.
Let's see. Is there illustrations in this one? I have my copy right here.
I'm not sure.
There's a little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit there. What are we on? The Horse and His Boy. Let me see if I can find the ones from the first one. Okay. They do have illustrations on the chapters.
Yeah.
There's a man running from a cheetah.
And they're very simplistic, but in the best way possible.
Let's see if I can find. Here's one from the Dawn Treader. Here's a little, that way. There you go.
Yeah.
That's what they look like. Yeah, and then they would be from the books there. I think they have full page illustrations in this one. Yeah, they have, at the end they have the full page illustrations here. So
very nice. That is not what I thought Caspian would look like.
Yeah, no, Caspian I think was blonde in the books, sort of like the Bond thing.
Okay, well then I guess it's a good thing that they went brunette.
Yeah, but my first thing is, we've discussed this in detail. I saw this in the theater 8 times and I never paid for it. I just kept getting free tickets. We went for the school trip.
How old were you when this happened?
Well, this came out, I think this is grade 6 or 7.
Okay.
And this was middle school for me, because we had separate middle schools. In Meyer, we were we cannot mix the 6, 7, 8s with the 4s and 5s. They might get corrupted. Yeah, that was a thing. People actually thought that.
What school did you go to?
Oh, I went to public school. My school house is freaking weird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had.
Wow.
We had Riverside and John Mahood. All the bad kids came from John Mahood. Then they all mixed together in 6, 7, and 8 at EDSS. Then we went to high school, and then everything just sort of normalized.
I was gonna say, it's not till high school that something
that
twisted starts.
No. You know how many kids got busted for weed in grade 6? It was a problem. Probably about 6 or 8 that year.
How many of them got dragged out of school by the cops? Because that actually happened.
Probably about 4 or 5.
That happened
One
in
guy
grade 11,
a couple times.
right before the Thanksgiving weekend. Some cops just bursted through the front door, through the foyer, and I just sat there. I'm like, fuck it, I'm not going near it. But everyone else ran towards it, and very fortunate for me, it happened to be the bully that actually I hated the most, because he was the only one that actually got physical with people.
We had no bullies like that, but this was right in middle school.
No need to rub it in.
So this was right in middle school, right?
Okay.
So we went as a school trip for, I think, my one class, and then we needed a school trip later on in the year, and there was no other movies they could take us to, so they took us again to the Chronicles of Narnia.
I love that it isn't until middle school that going to the movies is considered a field trip, because when my grade 7 year end, the first half of the day was at the Princess of all places, and that was actually the first time I ever went.
What did you see?
It was a toss-up for the students between either Land of the Lost or Race to Witch Mountain. Everyone, myself included, went to Land of the Lost.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
We knew it would have been more worth it, because like Dwayne Johnson wasn't that established. Everybody knew who Will Ferrell was.
Have you watched any of the Witch Mountain movies? Because they made 2 in the 70s.
No,
and
I've
then
never seen any of them.
None of them are great. They're all just sort of fairly mediocre. So honestly,
Shocking
Land of
there.
the Lost, I've watched the original show and it's fine, but like the one with Will Ferrell was surprisingly enjoyable. Is it a masterpiece?
Oh,
no, but it's a lot of fun.
We were in grade 7. We were gut busting, pretend to be amazed by that.
Yeah, so this is what we saw. And then when we went the second time, it didn't work. So they put us in a different theater and gave us free passes for the next movie. And then my parents were like, we need to ditch you for an afternoon. Here's some passes. And then my neighbors were like, you want to mow my lawn? I've got some movie tickets. We're like, let's go see the Chronicles of Narnia. So I saw it a whole, et cetera, et cetera. You get the picture. It's like a volcano erupting, you know, Pompeii of Chronicles of Narnia.
And my parents judge me for how many times I've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Joker, Batman, Dune.
You saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the normal color, and then you saw it in black and white?
No, that wasn't an option in black and white.
Oh, 35 millimeters. It's crazy cool, by the way, if you get a chance to see it. They played it at the Playhouse. I went up to see it. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did 35 millimeter in Playhouse. It was 12 reels with 30 minutes each.
That would have been pretty
Or was it
sweet.
25 minutes? But yeah, it was like a whole process, and like Tarantino looks better on film. Because you saw Hateful Eight on film, right?
No, I didn't actually get to see that when it was in theater. I did buy the poster off of you guys.
Yeah. Because I thought there was one Tarantino you saw in 35 millimeter.
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, and I went up to learn a little bit of projecting that day because you don't project a Tarantino movie and do it wrong.
I saw The Master on 70 millimeter in Toronto like a month before everything shut down.
I know you saw one thing. Yeah. Things are opening up so we can talk about movies more. So, jumping into Chronicles of Narnia here, we're just going to waive the one thing that we're not going to discuss is the special effects from 2005. They're not going to be perfect. That's just normal.
Well, if I'm being completely honest, a good chunk of them still, in my opinion, hold up to this day, and a large portion of that may be because they actually filmed on practical sets. They actually filmed on location in New Zealand because Andrew Adamson, the director, is actually from New Zealand. He knows the places that look the most beautiful, that fit the atmosphere of this world perfectly. And in regards to the CGI animals, some of them look like crap. But some of them also still hold up better than the shit that we get nowadays.
You could tell the budget from the first one to the third one. Like, the first one came out with a huge budget. The second one had a pretty decent budget. And then the third one, there was just a lack of CG budget for some of the creatures.
Which, the more I realized
centaurs
that
don't look quite as good as they did in the first one.
The more I realized that Don Treader actually relied more on humanoid-like creatures as opposed to anything else, because chances are they blew all the money on Reba Cheap. The fucking mouse.
Yeah, no, I was just like, the names are...
I'm just blown away that I know his name of all things. Because I don't remember Peter Dinklage's name. I don't remember Warwick Davis's name.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were in that.
Because, Peter Dinklage and Warwick Davis were in the same movie at one point.
Yeah, that was... But yeah, I think overall rewatching these was a very enjoyable experience. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, because the first one I was like, oh yeah, I have great memories of this. Remember the whole thing from front to back.
That was my impression going into it, and then I watched it and I sat there, I'm like, okay, this is good, but maybe I relied a little too much on nostalgia with my expectations, because rewatching this was the first time I had seen it since elementary school, so I just sat there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it some time. I'll go watch the sequels, because I never saw them when they came out, because I had been phased out of Narnia pretty quickly.
I think I saw the second one in theaters once, and then the third one, I don't even remember watching. I think I might have seen a clip somewhere.
I wasn't even that excited when Don Treader came out, and I think I was one of the few neighbor... It was absolutely
way too late, because what was the first one was 2005. Prince Caspian was 2008. It was like 2 years. It was like 2010. I think family movies had changed at that point and gone mostly animated. And at that point in 2010, I was excited about Despicable Me 2 coming out because the first one was wonderful.
People were getting phased out of the religious aspects of these types of movies. And I'm not saying it's inherently a good thing when you look at how religious movies are nowadays. That Well, calling them story-based is...
I call them
a
Newsboys based. Looking at you, God's Not Dead. Do y'all go to a Newsboys concert? What the heck?
You gotta love it.
What is that? Why is that?
You gotta love it when the Daily Wire says that you guys suck. Really put that into perspective.
But yeah, I think 2010 was just a different slate for movies, and I think, like, because Pirates of the Caribbean came out in, like, 2003, 2002, whatever that time was. I can't remember the exact date.
Yeah, I think.
And this is very much borrowing from the Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean sort of formula, and I think by 2010 that had got tired.
Yeah, especially with Don Treader, because probably one of the biggest problems I have with Don Treader is that it doesn't feel like a Narnia movie. It feels more like a Pirates sequel that just happens to take place.
It reminded me a lot of On Strange Tides, with inconsistent writing and just randomness.
Which is weird, because Don Treader is the one Narnia movie that wasn't actually made by Disney. The rights had went over to Fox or Searchlight.
It was like a Fox thing.
But very conveniently, the cast and crew transitioned from Disney to Fox like it was absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it was 20th century. But before we get into these, if you were to rank them in order, what would you say? Rank the three movies.
Number one, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, but my favorite Narnia movie is Prince Caspian. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is... I don't want to say a close second because there are a lot of things that I think Caspian does better than the original, but it still holds up as an endearing family fantasy that does have bursts of dramatic action. And like everybody, Don Treader's on the bottom, but I don't hate Don Treader. In fact, I hesitate to call it a bad movie because it's enjoyable in parts.
I don't think Don Treader is bad at all. I just think it suffers from trying to please multiple audiences, which we'll get to.
And it also came across more as an apology to people who were put off by the darker tone of Prince Caspian, because the director and the producers made it sound, as they were being interviewed for Don Treader, like they had to redeem themselves. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Andrew Adamson. Let's see. Same director as the first one. Director of Shrek.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the third one is the director of The World Is Not Enough. That's the one movie I know him for. Michael Abbott.
And the documentary series, which was weird.
Oh, the 39 and up and such?
Yeah, like 17
really?
and up. Yeah, that was him.
Okay, because those are really interesting watches. If you do get a chance to ever watch any of the 17, 35, 20, whatever those are, 65, 82 and up, they're fascinating because they just take a picture of someone's life and then they come back 10 years later and you get to see them again, and it's really interesting.
I have heard good stuff about it.
I've watched
I haven't seen any
5 of them.
Oh, okay.
Because they're princess movies, right? So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very princessy thing to do. But let's jump into the first one here. This is the one I remember the most.
100%. I mean, how could you not?
I like the opening. I love the opening where we jump in with this like hide and seek game. We get the backdrop of World War II creating this sort of tension. And I forgot that the guy who plays the collector of students in Harry Potter, the professor who turns into the purple chair, or whatever his name is, he plays the guy whose house they go to.
I think his name is Jim Broadbent.
That's the name.
Yeah,
the name.
Jim Broadbent is the professor, and while he's not in it a ton, in fact, they just call him the professor. They do throw in like a couple hints towards the magician's nephew because, like a lot of stories where kids go from the real world to a fantastical world, of course, they talk about it to everyone, and of course, nobody believes them. But the professor, when he hears about them, raises an eyebrow, so it does, at the very least, create a certain element of mystery to it, and suggests the fact that Narnia was once a much more prosperous place.
And I'm surprised I haven't made The Magician Nephew. If you haven't seen my episode pitching this movie, it's basically Endgame with Narnia characters. In London. It sounds pretty dope.
Which is weird. One would think Endgame with Narnia characters would be the last
Yeah, they tried to do this on the BBC. It didn't quite work out. But the one thing I don't get about this opening... Oh, the nanny! She's coming! The nanny! What the heck? I don't care about the scary nanny. What is this?
Well, because they did just break something that was incredibly valuable, and I get that there's no point in running away because they're going to get found out anyways, but at the same time... they're kids.
But they never really go back to this. Like, they never really mention her again. They never really show her much. It's just sort of like a thrown away plot they want to do, but they didn't use.
Mrs. McCready just existed to be a stuffy servant and not much else.
There's just nothing except for that opening scene.
And it serves no purpose because the professor is a wholesome guy and incredibly understanding, despite the fact that he's never actually worked with or lived with children. Like, he's, I'm guessing, a college-level professor or something like that.
But I think because he was the nephew that was in The Magician's Nephew there, who was about Narnia, he understands that childlike ambience, so to speak.
There's that about
There's
it,
that
too.
understanding of kids will be kids sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. Especially at the very end where he admits that he has tried to get into Narnia and does give the little, oh, one of these days you just have to have faith moments, which wasn't as shoehorned in as it could have been because
it could have been a lot worse.
Didn't recite it like he was preaching it. It genuinely sounded like it was coming off the top of his head.
Yeah, they run around the house for a bit, and the hide and seek game is a clever way to introduce you to the characters, the way they hide, the way they react, and I appreciate that. That gives us a little bit of character development getting in there, and I think that's quite clever.
It's also the only way you could actually force these kids to get into the wardrobe.
Yeah, that it's a little forced wardrobe here, you know.
Because I can't imagine how else it would have worked.
But we jump in, and we get, she jumps in, we get James McAvoy as that Mr. Thomas fellow. And they go to the house for tea, and it's quirky, it's weird, it's mysterious, we don't quite know what we're getting, and as a kid, like, we had read the books a long time ago, but I forgot when this movie came out. So... yeah.
I would have been... Oh, I was only like 9 years old at that point, so...
How
yeah,
old
that
was
would have
I?
been grade 4. Wow.
Yeah. I would have been 7. No. What's
Grade
90? What's
don't you mean
92
grade
to
sevens?
2005? What is that?
If I said you saw this in grade 7.
Okay, I would have been. I'm trying to think of 8, 5. I would have been 13.
Yeah, that's
That's
grade
92.
7.
Yeah. But I thought the element of mystery and like you could already tell that James McAvoy is that the name I'm thinking
Yeah,
of?
that's him.
Was like the makings of a great actor because just the way he handled this like absurd scene between him, this little girl who's probably never acted very much in her life, and this like shaking, and he's got a spill to the White Witch and everything, and I think he did such a good job in this scene.
The amazing thing about Lucy discovering Narnia for the first time is that Adamson, as a director, wanted to get as realistic of a reaction from a girl this young discovering a world like this for the first time that she was never allowed on set until the cameras started rolling. So when she's looking around and is impressed with everything, that's not acting. Like, she legitimately is blown away by everything that's happening. And when she sees Tumnus for the first time, she never saw McAvoy in the makeup before. So that was probably a legitimate scream, too. It's just impressive how the tiniest filmmaking details that you can get make a huge difference. It's like in The Goonies where the kids weren't allowed to see the pirate ship until the camera started rolling, but they kept swearing about how fucking awesome it was. They had to reshoot it. That was one of those, did you know that in the Goonies clips on YouTube that I keep clicking on? Because they're just...
There's a bunch of those do you knows, but like some of them are really good, and then some of them are like, did you know that I'm bored and can't speak with any enthusiasm? Those are boring me.
If the did you know clips come from a guy named Alan Tsai, those are the best ones, because he actually gives a shit. And he also throws in...
did you know that in the movie, I want enthusiasm,
And he also throws in some fake ones just to pull a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment. I love it when those... It's just like, did you know that in Don't Look Up, it's clearly science fiction because Leonardo DiCaprio was married to someone his age. I didn't even know that was a thing.
But speaking of age, all these kids here. So we have Georgie Henley as Lucy. Introduces us to the world. I think she does a fine enough job for the movie. I don't think she has a crazy amount to do in this movie, and she's okay. There's nothing wrong with her performance. Peter's sort of boring. William Mosley. And then we have Skander Kens as Edmund, who I really hate in all 3 movies. I just don't like him. I think the most interesting character is Susan, Anna Pablo.
I didn't quite get that vibe, but rewatching this, because like when you're when you're like 9 years old, you don't really pay attention to how good the acting is,
No.
especially when it comes down to kids. You just want to see them discovering the exact same things that you would want to discover and be blown away by them. But as an adult, it's much more impressive to see just how committed these kids are to their roles, and they actually execute their arcs, in my opinion, a hell of a lot better than most kids would nowadays. I mean, with Peter and Susan, when they're in the real world and they're saddled with the responsibility of basically having to be mom and dad towards Edmund and Lucy, they actually do work well together, and they know exactly what to say or how to behave in a given scenario as the guardians. But once they're thrown into a war-torn situation that, ironically, they were sent away from home in order to avoid.
Yeah.
I gotta love the metaphor there that certain dangers are just inevitable regardless of what age you are or where you come from and shit like that. Once they're saddled with responsibility over other people who they have never met before, that's when the two of them start to crack. They start to argue with each other more, and you realize that while they did know what to say and act before at the very beginning, they were doing it because A, they had to, and B, just to show to themselves and to their mom that's not even there, just to say, Mom would have been proud if I had said that they're just doing it for just to be validated. Like that one scene when they're trying to cross the bridge and it's just like, I'm trying to be reasonable. No, you're trying to be smart.
You know, some of the humor in this movie either really hits or just doesn't work at all.
I'm amazed that most of it hit to begin
some of the
with.
jokes work really well.
I love
That
the
one is
jokes.
good.
I love the dynamic between Ray Winstone and Dawn French as the Beavers, because the comic relief there could have bombed immediately. But the fact that the two of them interact like a genuine married couple, not an angry married couple like Everybody Loves Raymond or something like that. Though they do throw in some bits like, have you been sneaking leftovers again? Well, in the state of mind that Narnia is, you never know when your second meal is going to be your last.
I mean, me and my wife, I'll tease her about being better at Mario Kart, or she'll hit me with a red shell and laugh. But it's all in good fun, you know, in Mario Kart. You know, Mario Kart is a very intense thing, especially for married couples. But the one thing I will say, I like the transition, the bewilderment you mentioned. From Peter being like trying to get all his family to the bunker, the bombing. That scene was incredible in theaters. Like, I had never seen anything like that on screen. I'd never seen a war movie on screen.
And even though Edmund is making a terrible mistake, like when he grabs the picture of his dad, like you instantly get who Edmund is as a person. And if I gotta be honest, Edmund's actually my favorite character out of any of these kids throughout the three of them, because he actually learns something. Especially in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where he has to simultaneously act conflicted over the fact that he's betraying his own family while also giving into the temptation. The fact that he went from living a normal suburban life to being a foster kid in this middle of nowhere area, and when he's offered the chance to have all of this comfort and wealth and privilege and everything like that, of course he's going to say yes
and
to that.
And he does have some really great stuff in the later films, which he learned from the first film. He is the most developed character in the film. I just don't like him.
100%. And I think Skander Kane's showing all of these conflicting emotions at once with almost no dialogue in certain scenes. Because like when they're in Tumnus's house being ransacked and he's just staring off into space going, oh shit, this is not at all what I wanted.
Yeah.
Like, it absolutely works. And Georgie Henley as Lucy, you're right. She's very prominent in the first half just to set up the awe and wonder of this world, which doesn't really last that long, because the one glaring issue that I do have with this first movie is that there really isn't that much to be awe-inspired about. Like, for the first half, it's nothing but dreary winters with a lot of forests that look decent and practical, but it isn't until the second half that you really get to see Narnia as a country, and even then, like, most of the side characters, all these mythical creatures, they just take a back seat, and you don't really learn that much about what they've been through. That's not to say some of them don't stick out. Like, the one centaur that basically serves as Peter's second in command, I have no idea what his name is, but the design and his attitude towards everything that Peter and Edmund do, he stands out. He's absolutely memorable.
Patrick Cack. Orius.
Orius. Aureus, I'm willing to bet. Aureus is a decent side character, kind of like Bob in Batman. That's the Joker's henchman.
Bob is fun. He's
exactly.
Like, play the Prince music. Do
it's
it now.
That kind of character. But for the first half, you really only get the Beavers or the witch and her one goon.
But I want to talk about the Beavers. I love the Beavers. As a kid,
they're really
going
fun.
into the world, I like the characters. I want to talk about the train station scene where they're just sitting awkwardly in the middle of nowhere. That made me laugh so hard this time around. They get dropped off at the station before they get picked up, and they're just standing there. Just standing there. And it's just like this 30 seconds of awkward, oh, I guess no one's coming into the shot.
Is that like before they're being dropped off to the professor?
Yeah, before they go to the house.
Oh,
that scene is hilarious.
Right.
I don't know if it was meant to be that way.
Probably not, because I didn't get the same reaction that you
I
did.
just started laughing, and my wife looks at me. She's like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, it's so awkward.
I mean, you definitely feel the unease that the kids
I think they were trying to go for like this loneliness, this busyness to this quiet life. But
the carriage drives by and keeps going, and they're disappointed.
But the Beavers in this, I love the Beavers. They were always my favorite characters as a kid. I think my favorite character rewatching this is the White Witch, because what she does, Tilda Swinton is so good in this role.
I love that she was
born
the
for this
first
role.
and only choice. Like, that should really say something.
Like, Tilda Swinton's a really good actress, no matter what you put her in. In The Dead Don't Die, she does the most strange thing you'll ever see as, like, I guess she's a samurai who fights zombies in dry wit comedies there. I mean, she was really charming in The French Dispatch, even though she didn't have a ton to do. She just really embodied that role.
She was one of the journalists who stood out because of how, I want to say high-functioning alcoholic she was.
Yep.
And how, I don't want to say nympho, but there were those moments where the pictures pop up and it's just like, oh, that's me. And did I mention that Benicio del Toro tried to, well, fuck me?
Yeah, but she is literally so good in this role. When she first finds Edmund, she's so kind. She's like every bad relationship ever. She's positive and negative, but you don't know what you want to do with it, you know? And the way in the ice castle and the way she is so kind to Edmund, and Edmund takes that, the riches you mentioned and such, with Turkish Delight, which I never heard of until this movie, and then I went out and tried it. It was okay. It was okay.
Apparently, rose water, the main ingredient for that, is an acquired taste, and it's something that you could swap out for other shit like vanilla.
I mean, it was not bad. I just
chances are I wouldn't eat
gummy
it
worms
unless
at that
you
age.
swapped out the rose water for vanilla.
I mean, when I was in grade 7, I wanted gummy worms and Sour Patch Kids, and that's what I wanted. I wasn't into the
I was
fancy
more
ones.
of a gummy bears and Skittles kid, but yeah, I will say that the White Witch isn't as intimidating as I remembered her being, only because the costumes that they fit on her kind of look ridiculous, and you kind of wonder if she didn't have her own wardrobe, which she's Queen of Narnia. The least you could do is get your own wardrobe.
She's like if the what's her name from Frozen forgot to do laundry. I don't know, whatever the Let It Go girl is.
You know what? If Tilda Swinton, if the White Witch was the main character of Frozen,
she's like
I would
if
like
Natalie Portman
more
had
than
one
Elsa.
outfit in Star Wars Episode 1, and it was the weird red thing that went all the way up, and her face had like a blood going down.
The icicle crown looks fucking stupid, and the lion helmet at the very end, like, I don't understand that, but minor nitpicks about that. And honestly, I read some details that it could have looked worse. Her hair was apparently supposed to be black, but the costume designer's kid is just like, no, she should be blonde, and the guy's like, you're right, sweetie. So, appealing to the demographics. But Tilda Swinton hits the perfect level of over the top, because like she chews up every scene that she gets, and you're right, it is that abusive relationship mentality, almost like a cult too.
Yeah, a little bit.
She welcomes you with open arms, with all of these goods. She really is like inducting someone into a cult, and then once you're in there, instant switch from nurturing, if a little bit sarcastic, to just theatrical and angry, and just flaunts her power in front of everybody like it's a badge of honor.
Yeah, but I like the little touch where she gives him Turkish Delight, and then he says he's full, and he throws it away. and then that servant dude.
And it turns into snow.
Yeah, and the guy tries to eat some before it disappears, and I like that touch. Like, there's that disrespect for the people around her, you can tell. Just really good little moments, and I don't think... Because I watched a little bit with audio commentary, because I have the DVD for the first one.
Oh, okay.
And that was something she improvised, and I was like, oh, that's really well done.
Wait, throwing away the food?
Yeah, throwing away the food.
Wow.
Because originally supposed to be an empty box she throws away. There wasn't supposed to be food left, but they just sort of went with the take.
That actually does make total sense.
It's a good little touch. But I like how Edmund and Lucy both take something away from the magical wardrobe. I like how they both go in. They both have different experiences. They come back, and their siblings are like, y'all nuts.
Yeah.
Just immediately like, go to bed. Like, that's their whole thing. Like,
there's that about it.
I was that older sibling who had those sisters, and my sister would be doing something, and I'd be like, just go to sleep. I'm trying to sleep. Like, you know, you're just trying to be more mature than everyone else for no reason.
I really enjoy it when movies do that, because you know for a fact that the people who are constantly denying everything you're saying are going to be shown it. They're going to be blown away, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, can we just fucking get to that already? Like, we know what's going to happen. Fuck the realism. That's not what we need it for. And, of course, when they do get to Narnia, Peter's just like, you little liar. Well, you didn't believe her either.
Well, yeah, then there's just a bunch of infighting as they all go back into Narnia, and they go back to the house, as we mentioned, which is a really interesting scene, because I love the way they lit Mr. Thomas's house. It was bright and cheery, then it's doom and gloom. They really use the lighting to their effect in that small space.
I love the fact that the fire comes to life and that the visuals are illustrated through the flames.
Now, it was voiced by Billy Crystal. We've got ourselves a Ghibli movie.
I got no problem with that. I like Calcifer.
But then we get to go to I think one of the biggest, coolest set pieces. It's like the battle's cool, but it's just in a big green area. The White Witch's castle is crazy. How there's like stone statues and ice prisons, and like the layout of that is bananas.
You don't even realize that they're imprisoned animals, because when Edmund picks up the piece of coal and just draws a mustache on it, and like when you rewatch it and you realize what the statues mean, you're just sitting there and like, you fucking dick. And of course,
I like that
criminally underrated here. We get Michael Madsen as the head wolf henchman.
That's Michael Madsen?
Yeah!
I love the wolf, because the next chunk of the movie is like this sort of Lord of the Rings style, like, orc.
He kind of takes over as the villain for a solid 20
villain
minutes.
pursuit, right? And we get them wandering across. We get the great ice sequence, which is really suspenseful. I still found that a really great sequence today, where we get that smart remark, and that wolf is awesome.
And I just love that he like chirps his prey as often as he can to use the intimidation, because he knows for a fact that he's on all fours with just claws and teeth. The humans and the centaurs and everybody, they have weapons.
Yeah.
So he knows that he has to get under their skin in order to actually pose a threat. And also, these kids have absolutely no idea how to fight. And we'll get to that later on.
But the particular showdown between the wolves and the beavers, you can tell there's like a history between Mr. Beaver and the wolf.
Oh, 100%.
Without any backlog, without any major exposition, that Santa Claus scene is stupid.
It is, but like, I'm not gonna lie, I actually did get up to go to the bathroom and didn't pause it.
No, but like that moment when they just look at each other and there's that look in their eyes, the animators did a brilliant job. The way they interact with that dialogue, you know there's history, you know they both fear each other, you know there's a mutual respect for them, even though they're enemies. And then they have that brilliant little escape, and there's a squirrel in there somewhere just doing things, you know?
There's
and it's just that was one of the shining sequences of the whole movie, just seeing the interaction between a CG beaver and a CG and a CG wolf with such brilliant actors behind them. The switch from comedy immediately from just Mrs. Beaver and them in the house to this life-threatening, and even those jokes right before it, that's just a brilliant, well-directed sequence.
Not to mention, one scene that I'll counter with being better is the sequence where the fox is being confronted by the wolves.
That's good.
And they're all hiding above the tree. And there's so much suspense to the fact that it's a fox. You instantly think that he's going to sell everyone out. And when he says, I'm on your side, that it's a lie. And then it turns out, through the drawn-out sequences where the wolves are this close to ripping his throat out, that, yes, he actually is with the Narnian resistance. And you're not going to believe me on this, that fox is Prince Charming from Shrek.
Really?
Yeah.
I was just looking up who is the fox from Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah. Yeah, see, it's Rupert Everett.
Oh, wow.
And I mean,
okay. All right.
And Andrew Adamson, Shrek. I'm willing to bet that he probably got that voice afterwards because Shrek came just before his Shrek movie. Anyways, came just before this. So I'm willing to bet that that was probably from the collaborative process with being on Shrek.
But I think the what they did really well, and I think what they did with the first two Harry Potters, they found the right director. Because Christopher Columbus going from Home Alone and such into Harry Potter, brilliant choices. Even going into Paddington, great choice. Go direct Paddington. But Andrew Adamson coming off Shrek 1 and 2, which maybe I would say I love Shrek 1, people love Shrek 2, didn't direct 3 or 4. That's why they suck, because you didn't have the creator and director there.
Exactly. And if I'm being honest, I think that was part of the lull and the huge fallback that we get from like these two movies and then Don Shredder.
Yeah, because you change directors so often.
Adamson was a producer. And I'm willing to bet that's the only reason the actors from the Disney production transferred over to
That's
Fox
the only
so
reason why Edmund was so well developed and the characters stayed consistent, because he was in there making sure that happened.
More than likely, yeah.
But he may be one of the underrated like kids directors, because he did Shrek 1 and 2 and the first two Narnias, and I guess he's doing a Curious George movie. They just announced that. I mean, I'd be willing to watch that.
That's been floating around for years, and if I'm being honest,
they made one already, right?
They did one with Will Ferrell as the man in the yellow hat. And you know what? That was okay. I saw it when it came out and haven't seen it since. But I mean, I would argue that Adamson is one of the most underrated directors out there in general, because he clearly has a specific niche towards them. I mean, when you look at the first two Shrek movies, the first two Narnia movies, as well as a 3D Cirque du Soleil film that he actually put out.
That's cool.
Dude has a clear passion for fantasy and mythology. And you can clearly see that. I mean, the mythical creatures that they come up with are so imaginative. Most of them are portrayed through either a combination of practical and CGI or fully practical in particular. I mean, the stone table sequence, the majority of those characters are prosthetics and makeup. That Minotaur, like, holding the battle axe, that guy was fucking creepy. And there are so many other creatures, like one that has, like, very pale skin but with this grotesque-looking beak. And you saw them more in Prince Caspian.
So do you think when they were doing the stone table sequence, and we'll get to it and we'll discuss it, do you think they were inspired by Goblet of Fire's graveyard sequence?
Because
they both came out around the same time.
Tell you, it's been years since I've seen Goblet of Fire.
Because they put like Harry Potter on the statue, and they like cut the blood, and they do all the things, and then they resurrect Voldemort. That's it.
No, I feel like, I mean, the stone table is the most obvious Good Friday metaphor.
Exactly.
Get. I mean, when you're an adult, or if you're a kid and they teach you to this in religious studies and stuff like that. I went to a secular school. They didn't really explain this out in great detail. It wasn't until this one random car ride while my dad and I were talking about the movie, because I think we were thinking about going to see it and then we just never did, where that was the first time I really learned about characters being metaphors, with my dad explaining how Aslan is basically a metaphor for Jesus and the White Witch is Satan. I mean, no other way going about it.
I think the White Witch is supposed to be like... I think the White Witch is supposed to be just sort of a devil, like a demi angel or whatever, like a dark
Lucifer
angel.
Or Beelzebub or
I don't think she's meant to be Lucifer. I think she's meant to be like almost Lucifer, but because she's not quite a fallen. It's the books have a lot more description on her. I think she's just supposed to be like a demon in general.
And not to mention,
they're very vague.
Not to mention, C.S. Lewis, for whatever reason, hated the fact that there were so many people pointing out these metaphors. Because
he just wanted to write a cool fantasy book. He never meant to have parallels, except in small percentages.
It's too big of a coincidence for me, if I'm being completely honest. Because, I mean, especially with Aslan and everything.
Aslan is clearly the thing he meant.
Which, I mean, if we're going to talk about the best performance in this movie, it's got to go to Liam Neeson as Aslan. I mean, Liam Neeson is Aslan.
Oh, yeah, he has the voice. I mean, if you didn't get Liam Neeson, you get Morgan Freeman. Those are the two voices that could do this right.
Well, funny thing, Liam Neeson was actually added in at the last minute.
Really?
Originally, it was supposed to be Brian Cox, of all people.
I could see that. It'd be okay. He was what's his name?
It definitely
He
would
was
have
an
been a change of
X-Men. He was
pace.
the bad guy, right?
He's always a bad guy. I mean, he's a dickhead of a dad in Succession.
I
He's
could
really good in
also
Succession.
see Liev Schreiber doing a good job with the voice.
See, funny thing, we were talking about this in a separate video. You said Morgan Freeman. I said James Earl Jones because clearly James Earl Jones has no problem repeating himself.
Yeah, no,
over
he'd
and
be
over
fine
again.
with this. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, at least he would actually have a different script.
Yeah. But we got cool confrontation with the beavers and the fox. We get them running across the ice. And one thing that Andrew Adamson does with this movie particularly well is he has pacing for days. The movie starts off, we get to know the characters. It starts to pick up. We get to meet the beavers. We get a little comedy to really break down that slowness. Boom, right into action, right to the camp. Boom, he's building up to something huge. And as a kid, I remember sitting in the theater being like, yeah, go get him. And I'm just so excited to see the way he built this movie up with the story, the pacing, the actors. He knew exactly what he was doing. He hired the right editors, he hired the right producers, he hired the right people, and he got those performances to build to this massive battle crescendo at the end. And that's the strength of this movie. It's paced so darn well.
He does, when they show up at the camp, they build up the supposed prophecy of these kids and the introduction to Aslan at the exact same time in such a great fashion. I mean, when the kids are walking through the camp and we get the POV shots of all of these Narnian creatures that the kids haven't met and think they've seen everything at this point.
And up until then, we've got talking beavers and foxes and squirrels, and that's normal because we've seen Over the Hedge at this time, and we've seen Hoodwinked and
Not to mention the
such.
fact that the trees are alive in a way that I have never seen before. The leaves fly off and form people, and I just sat there and I'm like, that is
cool.
fucking brilliant.
That's Midsummer level of small detail.
Yeah.
In Midsummer, where they have the faces and the trees, like that's the level of detail. The trees talking as them as spies is very, very clever. I don't know what the trees owe to Tilda Swinton and the White Witch, but they work for her.
Probably the same thing. Well, because like there's some animals that work for the White Witch, some that work for Aslan. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing with the trees. And because the trees, their only personalities come through leaves, there's absolutely zero way of knowing.
But I think the Santa sequence is just too dumb. That's the part of the movie I don't like. I just don't dig it.
It's not as dumb as it could have been, but at the same time...
I mean, but it's so exposition-y. You know how I feel about exposition. The
Yeah,
fact that they need weapons, they're like, oh, we need weapons. I guess we're going to get Santa Claus.
Exposition, man.
Yeah,
Not
looking
to mention,
at you, the devil all the time. That's a stupid movie.
It's awful.
But yeah, and then we get to go and Aslan talks to the kids, and we find out that Edmund's the betrayer. We get to see this sort of journey, and there's this for a kid, as much as I don't like Edmund he rubs me the wrong way, but he does a really good job of seeing that he's betrayed his family and friends. And he does a really good job, and Aslan brings him into the fold. And then we get, and the camp is neat. I think there's a little too much CG in the background, but that's life.
Again, today's CGI somehow has gotten more noticeable.
But man, I did not remember how dark the stone table sequence was. Because as a kid, I always forgot about that sequence. I just remember the cool battle at the end.
See, reading the stone table sequence in the book was fucking heart-wrenching. Because
find it.
when you're a 9-year-old who expects everything to have a happy ending or every bad situation to have a reverse at the last minute, and you still get suspense, anticipation, and still well done because you're waiting for it to happen, and then all of a sudden, bam, the last thing you wanted to happen does, and you're actually crying about it because you love Aslan so much, and they build up Aslan as a character so well. Even at his most strict and stern, he still has this soft and meditative line delivery that makes me wish Liam Neeson did more voice acting. I haven't seen that one movie he did, The Prophet, but I've heard good stuff about it.
The one thing I really appreciate about this is what this movie does is they're like, kids, life sucks. You will be sad. You will be depressed. So let's talk about that right now. So here's the thing. You're going to have these 4 kids go on a magical adventure. Things are going to get worse. Someone's going to die. It's going to get worse than that. It's going to get worse than that. Then we're going to kill the character you love. We're going to bring you down so low. Rocky doesn't even do this. Rocky doesn't even bring Stallone down that low. It's like Rocky 5 levels of low where he's living back in his old house.
Here's my problem with that. Apollo doesn't come back to life.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Aslan does. And here's my one issue with the stone table sequence. Even when Aslan doesn't realize that Susan and Lucy are following him and are about to witness something incredibly fucked up, and even when he shows up and sacrifices himself, he looks like he's scared shitless. And yet, he already knows for a fact what's going to happen to him, let alone to everyone else. And I'm just sitting there going, why are you even pretending to be afraid when it serves absolutely zero purpose?
I think they're trying to do the Garden of Gethsemane, particularly when Jesus... when Jesus knew he was going to be betrayed, he went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray and was afraid because he was going to go die on the cross. That's, I think, what they're doing here.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're trying to parallel.
Aslan already saw the writing on the stone table and already understood the interpretation. He explains it to Susan and Lucy after it happens.
I think
but don't get me wrong. Like,
I think that's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
The scene itself is still uncomfortable because of the amount of satanic imagery that is happening. And
really dark.
The drum beat of the music. The fact that it's coming from them beating their weapons. There's no, like, orchestral composition or anything. It's just all digestible sound. Diegetic sound. And of course... Tilda Swinton, why am I blanking on this one name? I really don't understand it. The fact that she absolutely owns that scene of all the moments that she has.
Yeah.
Just relishes.
Oh, it's really good.
All of the power that she
But that's
has.
one thing really great at this movie. The score is incredibly phenomenal. This is an amazing cinema score.
It is cinematic,
It's
large-scale, operatic. For the first two movies anyways... When you hear the music and it's at its highest, you know that shit's about to go down and you are bracing for it.
And that's one thing with kids' movies. Most kids' movies are fun and enjoyable, and kids love them, and you can watch them with your families, but they never really dive too deep into a score. Like, even Despicable Me uses a pop song, a rendition of that, and some ominous tones. And, like, the only ones you really get great scores on are the first two Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter, and Home Alone has an impressive score. That one's really well done.
That's
you don't
true.
really.
Who does the score?
I'm gonna look
this?
it up.
Yeah,
but
here's
the score blew me away because it really elevates those emotional moments, and that's what scores should do.
Yeah, and when it comes to musical scores in kids' movies, they are large scale, but they're also whimsical at the exact same time. And depending on the tone that they're going for, it still works. But with this, the music has to convey the possibility that these characters might fail.
Harry
and they do that.
Gregson Williams. Let's
I
see
gotta
what
say,
he's done.
I'm not familiar.
I'm gonna
just add him to the list of underrated composers.
He composed Man on Fire, Shrek, The Martian,
okay,
House of Gucci. That was actually a really good score. I'll give House of Gucci that. They had a really atmosphere.
And Last
LA
Duel.
Confidential.
Okay, so he likes working
Equalizer.
Yeah. He does a lot of really dramatic stuff, because Zookeeper's Wife, that's so melodramatic, you need like the score to...
Cowboys and Aliens.
Strings. Oh, really?
X-Men Origins Wolverine, strong score in there.
Okay.
Team America World Police.
Oh.
That's such a strange everything. He did the score for Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, the musical one.
Okay, so...
Spy Game, Powder Keg, Enemy of the State. The Borrowers, that was particular.
Okay,
did you ever
so
see
he
The Borrowers?
The John Goodman one? No.
Yeah, they did an animated one and they did a John Goodman one. I'm guessing this is the John Goodman one.
Okay, so he clearly likes working with DreamWorks, and again, that's probably where Adamson really got a lot of connections working with DreamWorks.
Yeah, this score is phenomenal. Like, when they do the stone table sequence, what makes it so well, the White Witch is acting incredibly. Aslan, Liam Neeson is selling this performance. In the later movies, it's not as great, but he's still good. And then the score is elevating this, and you have Lucy watching, you have this bird's eye view of this kid watching their hero die.
Yeah.
It's dark as fuck, and I love it.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it doesn't push itself too far.
No.
Like, grown-ups will understand that this is supposed to represent a satanic ritual, and the kids... It looks dark, it looks moody, and that's going to be more than enough. I mean, there are all these hideous mythical creatures. They have torches, they have weapons, they have rope, they have fucking everything.
And I think that's the genius of early kids movies from the 90s, from the 80s. Oh, let's say the 80s, because 70s was like just Benji. That's what you got, and Herbie. But from like the 80s into like about 2006, kids films could be really dark. And they could show things, but they could be really positive. But now kids' movies are sanitized and everything is happy. And the biggest conflict is, I don't know if I fit in. And I think there's a place for a movie like that. But I think you have to be able to show kids darkness. I think you have to be able to have sequences like this. I think you need the Winnie the Pooh, the Hufflumps and Woozles from the 60s. You need the Goonies. You need the weird darkness, strange stuff. You need the risk of losing your home. You need some sort of stake for kids to be invested in a movie.
Well, here's the thing. There's a certain Pixar movie that Josh and I will talk about one of these days that is not sanitized, but for the absolute wrong reasons.
Well, we'll get around to that, but this stone table sequence blew my mind.
It was good. Like, the fact that...
This isn't a kid's movie. That's what I was so amazed at, you know?
For the most part, yeah, it actually could be marketed towards kids or adults or both, and people could still get their money's worth regardless.
And I think maybe Chronicles of Narnia and Pirates of the Caribbean and Spy Kids from that era, these were the last great live-action kids movies. Live-action kids movies went from these sort of adventure films to Alexander's Really Horrible Bad Day, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, such like this, which have their place, but they're I don't think...
Or the fucking Cheaper by the Dozen remake, which...
But I just don't think there's enough live-action kids movies. Kids don't want always animation. There's a nice variety, and that's a reason we have both.
Well, I mean, not to mention, kids' animation has gotten saturated mainly with CGI. And, you know, coming from this nostalgic side of having seen old and new movies that were in 2D and honestly accomplished a lot more with very little, and still do to this day, depending on where the movies come from.
Or you get something like Free Guy or like Jumanji, which are the only live-action kids movies I can think of in recent memory that are actually fun.
I can't really see Jumanji or Free Guy as kids' movies. I mean, kids can watch them fine, but there's some stuff that they're not going to pick up on, and it's not really going to make that much of a difference.
But it's like kids could actually have movies that were made intelligently and not just dumbed down for them. And that's what I appreciate.
There's getting a little bit of resurgence for people who like Matilda, because Doug Walker talked about in this one video talking about Danny DeVito's biography and style as a director, how he used to hate Matilda for how over the top and grim it was for a comedy, but after COVID and the quarantine and everything, and just seeing how kids stuff has become so sanitized, the darker tone that he initially despised all of a sudden became a breath of fresh air for him. And I feel like as people are discovering older kids-related content, and hell, there's some newer content that is still decent. I mean, one of the reasons DuckTales is among my favorite shows is because there are moments where they do legitimately take risks. I mean, the character...
If you haven't seen Tyler's long video essay on DuckTales, totally worth the watch. I'm a big video essay fan. On YouTube, I love watching long half-an-hour video essays, and that's one of the best. Go check it out.
And my favorite character, who has experienced homelessness, has experienced child abuse, has kind of sort of experienced death, considering there was one episode where she did kind of get whacked. They did bring her back, and I knew for a fact that
Here's the sequence. Here's the tone. That's dark, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Is that a fucking ogre right there?
Yeah, that's an ogre, and like it's a banana sequence. The tape, but yeah,
they pulled no punches on the prosthetics and.
But
makeup,
before we got to this sequence, I almost forgot. We turned Mr. Thomas to stone. That's a dark moment.
It was a decent sequence. It wasn't one of my favorites because one thing we tend to forget about is how little Mr. Tumnus is actually in the movie.
How much it means to Lucy. That's the introduction to the world. That's one of the first characters we see.
That part does make it hold
That's
up.
Lucy's entire arc.
When Tumnus talks to Edmund and it becomes very clear that Edmund is Lucy's brother, the first thing he asks, is she okay? Like, that part is good. And you can tell that Edmund's just sitting there going, well, I hope so.
Yeah, and then we get the big final battle sequence at the end. I think the confrontation between Aslan and Tilda Swinton as the White Witch before this is okay. I don't think it's bad by any means. It just doesn't throw me as much as what comes. It's a build-up to what we're getting.
It's just there.
And then the final action sequence is really great, except for that stupid slow motion at the end. I don't like that. We're at the end where
Is
they're
it
like,
where everything speeds up?
yeah, and they're like, they like as a kid, I thought it was really cool where they start going in slow motion, then boom, it's really fast. I just don't love that. I don't love that. I just don't like that anymore.
Well, like when Aslan defeats the White Witch and everything speeds up while the kids are watching, I'm just sitting there going, wait, what's going on?
And that was cool. That was like the Lord of the Rings moment where they bring back all the ghosts, and they bring all the statues and rush into battle and defeat them.
Yeah.
And that feels really cool. That feels good. Like everything this evil witch has done is now undone, and now they're going to be crushed. It's cool.
I will say, like, I do really like the final battle and just the amount of imaginative ways they come up with using real animals and mythical creatures to actually fight each other. The fact that you have hippogriffs dropping stones on the witches' soldiers.
Cool.
There's a phoenix that just divides the battlefield.
The
like
way
it's a
they
fucking
shoot
flame.
it is very Braveheartish with the overviews, the close-ups, the way they cut it, the pacing. Very Braveheart, very 90s, big
And
epic
they made
battle,
it clear
and I like
that not everyone's going to be revived. Like, when some people get turned into statue, the statues just get smashed.
Oh, and that is, like, I like in kids' movies where you can do a death, but you don't have to be overly bloody.
That's how it
neat.
works. Like, the DuckTales death that I just talked about, you don't see any blood or guts or anything. The girl just evaporates.
But it's clever to have them turn to stone. I know it's from the book, but having them turn to stone and be able to slash that statue, to have that permanent death, or to be able to kill a character that way, just the guts they had to kill characters on screen, because kids' movies do not kill characters
And
anymore.
I really felt it for Edmund when he breaks the witch's scepter with his sword,
Yeah.
so, like, her power is gone, and then she takes what little she has left and just stabs it right into him. And I like that when Peter screams his name, the sound is drawn out. It's less ridiculous. It actually feels a lot more impactful. It's like that one Batman movie where Robin is tortured by the Joker, but there's no sound.
The Killing Joke?
Screaming. No, it's that Batman Beyond one where the Joker comes back and they have that little flashback.
Yeah, I've seen this one, but my brain is escaping. The Mask of the Phantasm? No, that's the Batman
No. It's just called Return of the Joker.
Oh, Return of the Joker. Okay, there's a lot of these things.
Exactly.
But I think this sequence is brilliant at the end, and that always got me really hyped up. That was my favorite part. And again, the pacing just moves. Boom.
There is one issue I have with it, and it's how the movie decides to handle the prophecy. The fact that these 4 kids are supposed to be the ones who lead an entire country to victory from this oppressive ruler. And you're supposed to legitimately believe that these kids are capable of doing so. And I just didn't. And there is one easy way to fix that. Wouldn't it have been more interesting if Peter and Edmund were taking fencing lessons at the professor's house while Susan was also practicing her archery?
Archery would have been a thing that people in upper class would have done in that time period.
And they have a shitload of wide open space in order to do so.
That
Not to mention the fact that Peter and Edmund both want to be soldiers in World War II at a certain point in each of these movies.
Yeah,
they want to contribute.
That's a fun scene.
They want to live up to their father's legacy because their dad is a soldier. But once they're in Narnia and Peter is waving around a sword towards the wolves or anything like that, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you have absolutely no chance whatsoever.
Yeah, that would have actually been good. And I think this movie overall is, like, if you're going to recommend a kids movie that a family can sit down and watch that's not animated, you've got Princess Bride, Goonies, Home Alone at Christmas, you got Chronicles, Narnia, and the first Pirates of the Caribbean. There's not a lot you can put in this roster. And maybe the first Jumanji.
At least
and
not
there's a
in
couple.
live action.
Yeah, so I think overall, and I like how they simply wrap this up. It's very quick. They walk to the throne, they do the Star Wars throne room, Chewbacca doesn't get his medal, they're done. That's it. Done. That's the movie. And then they're back in real life, and I like how time hasn't been lost. I think that's very charming. Like, they're back where they were. That's it.
The timeline of Narnia in the real world has always been really confusing, especially with Dawn Treader, where it's only been like a few years, but in the real world it's been a little bit more than that. Like,
because
like Disney to Fox transition, chances are something.
Because the passage of time is 123 years different for Susan in the second one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember that from the end because I watched it last.
Oh, okay. I
So
knew
it's
there
like
were...
time is weird. We don't really worry about that. That's not important here. The point is we have a great fantasy element for kids that they can watch that does not go too hard on the religious themes until the third one that you could interpret as whatever you want if you didn't know. And I like that. I like that it's vague. Vague is good.
That part is true,
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, that one line at the end's a little there, but like it's sort of like you could say that faith thing. You could say, do you believe in magic? Sort of like, do you believe in daydreaming magic? Do you believe in dreams? I like that.
That's fair.
So overall, I love this movie.
It is really good.
I love it.
It's but it's something that you appreciate a little more after you watch it and you talk about it, because sometimes this is one of those few movies where I do legitimately think that nostalgia got in the way of how much I thought I was going to enjoy this.
Oh, that's fair.
And what I said about the kids like discovering Narnia in real time along with us and not really getting to learn that much about the lore, it was in the book, but it's one of those things where I think they were a little too faithful in parts.
They were a little Harry Potter-ish with Lucy, having her discover the world but not giving her enough character development. That's the only major character flaw, I think, in this film.
That's fair.
Because Harry Potter doesn't do much in the first movie, except he introduced us to the world,
Lucy
and the second one he gets to do more.
Extremely hit and miss with these films.
Yeah,
because
very.
in the first movie, you think that she's going to be the star because she's the one who introduces everybody, and she's the one who has the most amount of optimism and faith towards her family and towards all these new friends that she has. In Prince Caspian, I kept forgetting that she was in there, if I'm being completely honest.
But we're going to be right back after this cool new message break that we filmed for the next part. We'll see you in a minute. I'm Josh Oh my goodness, that started without me. Hi there, I'm Josh Gofton, and I want to tell you all about the new exciting channel that we have, PB&J. Ben's the jam. I'm the peanut butter that I'm allergic to myself, and we do comedy. We do nonsense. We say good morning. We randomly have bears and puppets. For some reason, we do these things. If you want to check all that out, and that sounds interesting to you, or you're just wondering if I'm a madman, that is an option on the PB&J channel. You can subscribe and hit that like button, and there's new videos every 2 days. We are on a mission to make you question our sanity. PB&J, check us out.
In every Kellogg's pack, 2 scoops. Keep them coming back for 2 scoops of plump, juicy raisins in Kellogg's Raisin Bran.
Oh, hey, how you doing? I'm Tyler, and there is no perfect movie, but you can find out why there's no perfect movie by clicking the link to my channel in the description below. Got plenty of new movie reviews coming up, along with Turning Red with my good buddy Josh, as well as The Hyperions, a comedy, drama, action, sort of. It's a ton of different genres. Starring the late, great Carrie Elways. At least he looks late and great. Dude looks like a zombie at this point. In any case, click the link in the description below. Thanks to you for sticking all the way through on this video, and let's keep watching right now.
Hello, and we are back.
I
We've
didn't
had
go
our
anywhere.
brief commercial break there. We stayed in our seats, and we both wore matching colors for the second half because that's how it goes. On Wednesdays, we wear black. Or is it Sundays? I don't know. Mean Girls quote. It's like
You
pink.
fucking said Sunday.
I forget what the Mean Girls quote is. So,
Sunday,
I'm
day
doing
of
my
worship. And before I forget, I just want to point out the clever irony that Andrew Adamson was hired for Narnia movies when his last name is Son and Adam. I mean, these Christian jokes just write themselves.
Son of Adam. That's what they say, the Liam Neeson thing. Anyway, we're jumping into Prince Caspian. What'd you think of the movie?
I gotta be honest, I love this movie. This was actually, in my opinion, a hell of a lot better. And when I rewatched Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe and found that while it definitely had dark and gritty moments, in the grand scheme of things, it felt very light and heartwarming for the most part. This just goes all out with the darker, more mature outlook that these kids have, returning to Narnia and discovering that the land that they ruled over, that they made so prosperous and wonderful to live in, isn't technically worse than it was before, but it does seem a lot more empty and dreary and a little more hopeless now that these humans who come from a complete and utter different country, who are basically Mediterranean, like it's a mixture of Italian and Spanish, heavy on Spanish Inquisition costumes.
Get the fluffy pillow!
I was trying to set that joke up for you, man. Come on. I was just about to say they
No
look
one
like
expects
Spanish.
Josh making a joke about Monty Python. Fear, surprise, those are our weapons. Chief, surprise, you do it.
Fuck you.
No, it actually reminds me a lot of The Darkness of Screwtape Letters, where basically it's a guy writing the devil, and the devil writes him back.
How does that remind you of that?
Because it's crazy dark, like really, really dark, like some of the scenes in this movie.
Oh,
And it's a C.S. Lewis book, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see the
I'm a big
authorship on
yeah.
that one.
Mm-hmm. Dear Wormwood. It's, yeah.
Is that seriously the main character's name?
Yep.
You don't have to show me. I'll just take your word for it. Oh, it's written like a diary.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's written like a diary back and forth from him to the devil, and it gets darker and darker and darker, and it's crazy dark. It's a good read.
Wow, no wonder people really like C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, no, that's probably his best writing besides Chronicles of Narnia. But what I love this movie. This is the Return of the King of Narnia, but only it's the second one.
It is fucking
It's
epic.
awesome. It's insane. There's twists and turns. There's great battle sequences. There's some really great continuation of characters from the previous there. There's some sequences that were in the book that are just in... The White Witch sequence is insanity. I love it. That's probably one of my favorite sequences in the whole book.
It improves upon everything. It improves upon the characterization, except for Lucy. It improves upon...
Yeah.
It improves upon the world building and the mythical creatures who actually are kind of front and center alongside the main cast. It improves upon the cinematography. There is more than one action sequence, and the battles are fucking amazing. And it improves upon some of the themes. It improves upon, like, having a villain who isn't one note. I mean...
Oh, I love the villain in this movie.
Tilda Swinton still reigns superior in regards to Narnia villains, but the main villain in this one comes very close because he has more of a motivation. He's still a complete and utter scumbag, but you can kind of understand why he could possibly justify his own actions. Same with his second in commands, who definitely want to get rid of him and don't like where he's going, but they're not
Without
exactly
evidence, we cannot convict the king of the land.
They're not exactly angels either.
No, but I like how we open up on this one. I like how we see Lucy and Susan and Peter and all of them at different stages of their life. And this is the last time we see, and I think the strength of the first two movies here is having all four of them in Narnia, which we don't have that in the third one. Because the ensembleness and the way they play off each other, we know them. And then we get to see all these like kings and rulers in Narnia going around just doing whatever shit they want because they're in charge, and we get to see the throne room. And when they finally do jump to Narnia after a fight and Susan disapproves, we immediately see ruins. There's no happiness, there's nothing, there's no mythical creatures, it's like everything sucks.
Yeah, and
I like that.
It doesn't even appear that way because another thing that improves upon this movie is that it is bright, it is vibrant, it is colorful. But it's bright, vibrant, and colorful in portraying all of these ruins. The fact that they're in this random hill with a bunch of broken down stone walls that they realize was their kingdom. That was where their thrones used to be. And while it still looks pretty, it's incredibly bittersweet because you know for a fact that there used to be a hell of a lot more there. And it also makes them realize that because of how fast or how slow, again, we're not entirely sure how the Narnia timeline works, none of their friends who could connect the dots, who can say to the other Narnians, these are the four kings and queens from before. Mr. Tumnus, the Beavers, Aureus, they're all dead. And it hits them hard really quickly, because as soon as Lucy points that out, they all just stand there in silence, almost as if they're just giving a moment of silence out of respect for all of these people.
And it's interesting how they connect it with a single chess piece.
That's right.
It's a simple sort of game, pawn, played in, like, they're setting this up because it's a pawn game, really, this movie. And the way they set it up with this chess piece. But we do right off the bat, I like how they enjoy Narnia immediately, jump in the water, and then they realize the tragedy that has happened. But the scene where they find the secret door and they have all their stuff, I'm not a big fan of that moment.
I was perfectly fine with it. I mean, I'm not going to act like it serves much of a purpose other than the fact that they do need their weapons, and because we know for a fact that they spent 20-some years in Narnia as rulers, we actually buy into the fact that they have legit experience, that they're capable of holding their own in combat.
But the best part is, as soon as they're in there, they know their combat, everyone doubts them immediately. Everyone's like, who are you? Why would you save us? You're terrible.
Because again, like, these Narnia creatures all come from a different era, and they've lived under much more worse, impoverished circumstances, especially when it comes down to Peter Dinklage as kind of the first person to catch on that they are the four kings and queens, and Trumpkin. And immediately he's just like, oh, shit, here we
but
go.
the first thing we see of any mythical creatures in this entire world is Peter Dinklage being dragged into a throne room. Yeah. And they're like, these things don't exist. We wiped them out. Like, that's where we're setting our stage here. We're trying to kill the prince. He's running through the forest, blew some magical horn, and we're wiping out magical creatures because we are unique human beings.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what the justification was, but yeah, he brings in Trumpkin as proof that fantasy creatures do in fact exist.
He kidnapped the prince. He blames him when he was really setting it up.
And I love Trumpkin once they take the gag off of his mouth. He instantly just goes, "And no wonder we don't like you."
I mean, Peter Dinklage is great in this role.
This might have actually been his first like super big role, like not the station agent where he actually had the movie all to his own.
Was it Elf that would have been his big role?
For like 5 minutes, I guess. But I mean, like, just being front and center within the ensemble, because when it comes to Elf, and even with the Death at a Funeral movies, he was kind of just a punchline. I mean, in Death at a Funeral, the punchline does tie into the story, and it still works. If you find Death at a Funeral funny, but...
I find moments enjoyable.
Yeah, which really makes no difference, because both of them are the fucking same.
Yeah, it looks like this was his first really big role.
Yeah. Let's not count Underdog while we're at it.
Nip Tuck's a TV show. But, yeah. So
yeah, that's right.
This movie just moves. Honestly, things just happen, and I like it. It just wastes no time.
No, for sure. And what's interesting is that they spend a lot of time debating over strategy and military tactics when it comes to how they're going to win this country over from Caspian's uncle. Stuff that I desperately wanted from Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, because... really, when you think about it, the fact that they leave those scenes in and then already expect you to buy into Peter being supreme leader shouting, "For Narnia and for Aslan." And
they shout for Narnia a lot. It's sort of like in Rocky how they yell Adrian constantly.
Yeah, but like in Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, when he shouts, "For Narnia," I'm just sitting there and I'm going, good luck. But in Prince Caspian, because dude has the experience, whenever anybody says that, I just sit there and I go, fuck yeah, let's kick some ass.
Yeah, I mean, this movie just immediately jumps in. It doesn't waste too much time on its subplot. It's very simple. It's very basic. We immediately meet Prince Caspian, and right away, he meets up with the people he needs to. He recruits an army. The centaurs are behind him. Our favorite, what's the name of that fun character? The mouse.
Reepicheep, who in this one is played by Eddie Izzard. And Izzard does a pretty good job. This is going to be really complicated because Eddie Izzard is trans and prefers to be called she, although she doesn't mind being called he. Apparently, as long as you call him or her Eddie, you're totally fine. So, like, just bear with us on this, okay?
I have to figure out who they are.
So, Eddie Izzard is a comedian, and the big gambit around her is that she used to dress up in dresses while she was doing her stand-up, and everyone thought that was part of the gag, or that she was just a transvestite, and it wasn't until a few years ago where she came out in public and said, no, that wasn't just a gimmick, I am in fact trans, but still really good at acting.
No, as long as they're living their best life, it's all good.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we're going to talk a little bit about who plays Reepicheep when we get to Dawn Treader, but Izzard really stands out here, and there are a lot of fantasy creatures that you can get mixed up in easily. I think one of the first creatures to recognize Prince Caspian when he ventures into the forest outside of Peter Dinklage and Warwick Davis is either a skunk or a badger.
It's a badger.
Of some kind. Yeah, a badger.
Who does the badger voice? I'm going to find out here.
Yeah, but I do like that Prince Caspian, which, fun fact, Andrew Garfield actually auditioned for the role of Caspian.
I'd be down for that.
But apparently wasn't as handsome as Ben Barnes.
I've never seen Ben Barnes in anything except for this movie. And
Exactly,
the next movie.
which really makes you wonder what the casting directors were thinking. And while Andrew Garfield is technically a better actor, Ben Barnes still incredibly holds his own in regards to the other cast members. He blends in so seamlessly, and I like the fact that from a writing perspective, he doesn't start off as your basic would-be king. I mean, you know for a fact that he is capable of it. Mm-hmm. He is strong, he is good with weapons, he is selfless when it comes to fighting for those who are less fortunate, and he's willing to team up with anyone who will hear him out. That great sequence where he has to persuade all of the woodland creatures who really don't know anything about his kingdom other than the fact that they have taken over their land and are instantly skeptical of him. But because he refuses to let anyone drown out his voice and speaks from the bottom of his heart, he's able to win people over. But he knows less about Narnia than the Pevensies do. So he does actually have to reluctantly learn how to be a ruler from people who are technically younger than him. And it actually makes the rivalry between him and Peter actually genuine. Because with rivalries like these, I get so sick of them because they're so forced and tacked on. And you know for a fact that they're going to shake hands and meet up at the very end. But because Prince Caspian knows for a fact that he's next in line to be the throne, and Peter has spent 20-some years in Narnia as king, only to return a year later to being another peasant who is stuck in the war and feels as if he deserves better. That rivalry actually works. Yeah,
but when they expand on that one of the benefits of the Dawn Treaders is when they have their little fight over the gold fountain in the Dawn Treader, they sort of just immediately figure out how they fight and get over it. And like
that part I thought was completely
But they have so it's Ken Scott who voices Truffle Hunter the Badger. He was Balin in The Hobbit.
I didn't watch The Hobbit because even I knew back then that was going to be a complete...
I have to figure out which Hobbit he is.
My point exactly here.
He's the one with the beard. The beard Hobbit. This guy.
So what? The guy who was on mushrooms had a beard too.
The one with the big gray beard. The old one.
Whatever.
But yeah, we jump into that, and I think Prince Caspian is fine in this movie. I don't think he's the standout at all. I think he's okay.
I mean, I gotta be honest, I was a little more blown away with William Moseley as Peter, because as I said before, he was a little more interesting when he was in the real world, because he had the den father routine down packed until he ended up in the battlefield, and he had absolutely no idea what he was going for. But because of the fact that he's gone in and out of Narnia quite a bit and has a fair bit of resentment over what he thinks he deserves based on what he's contributed, he actually comes across as a little more cocky, and you have to watch him learn the hard way the consequences of what happens when you formulate a plan. It doesn't go into full effect, and a lot of people suffer for it. A lot of people die, a lot of people get captured, and he has to learn from these mistakes, accept help from other people who have equal amounts of ruling experience, because that's the other thing. Even though his siblings all know exactly the same things as he does, he's the oldest. He feels as if he instantly has to be superior, and it actually works.
They wanted me to apologize, so I hit him.
What?
That's what in the subway.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, how'd you get into this fight?
I wasn't paying attention to that.
Actually, the guy we're just talking about, William Moseley, is going to play Davy Crockett in a new movie.
Well, I love that. I didn't think that he was still doing stuff.
Going on a Tom in Tennessee.
Which is weird, because Skander Kynes is not an actor anymore. I think he's in politics now.
Oh, let's take a look.
No, he is. Like, I checked. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I just don't know exactly what it was the first time around.
But yeah, we get into the world, and I like that we jump into it, and then we immediately get to an action sequence within like the first 40 minutes. The castle siege.
The castle
siege is great. You were comparing it to Robin Hood earlier.
Because it really has the exact same setup of having to sneak into a castle to be as quiet as possible, take every guard out you possibly can. I love the fact that Edmund forgot his fucking torch, or flashlight, because they call it torch in England, in Narnia. But it works as a signal to the Narnians to say coast is clear, as opposed to actually using a flame. And I just thought, fuck, that is fantastic stuff there.
And the one thing about this sequence that's really great, they have their plan. I like how there's tension amongst the brothers and sisters here. I like how they're like, we can't stay here. This is a tomb. Like, it's a dark moment. They can't stay and defend a tomb. They have to go and fight, you know? They're sort of fighting two-front war. And then they go and fight this war, but Ben Barnes, Prince Caspian, has to find his teacher, wise dude, in the castle, and it screws the whole plan for a loop. And if they hadn't done, they'd be perfect, you know?
But you also understand why he's going to do that, because without that mentor, Caspian would not still be alive. He still wouldn't be the greatest asset Narnia needs in order to take back their land.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the mentor knows a lot more about Miraz than anyone else.
But this sequence is particularly spectacular because the action's well shot, the action's well executed, well choreographed, all the creatures look really, really good. But we get this cool fight sequence, and I recommend you just go watch it. Watch Prince Caspian. If you're going to watch any of these Narnia movies, this is the one to watch.
We can't sell it enough. Like, they edit down a little bit of the violence just to make it PG, but at the same time, it feels like a PG-13 even. The fact that so many characters get kicked off of walls to their death. They get stabbed. They get shot with arrows. Which
I think there's a beheading in there, too.
There might have been.
I think they snuck in a beheading or like a chopped off leg or something. Someone loses a limb or something.
You know what? I'm starting to remember that a little bit now. Susan actually gets to use her fucking bow and arrow.
Shoots it right through someone's chest. It's great.
And actually has leadership status working alongside Trumpkin and having to kind of come up with a proper way to use the other Narnia citizens as soldiers, because a good chunk of them have never fought for their lives before. And she actually has to take a leadership position that Peter had before.
And I love how Peter's leadership is questioned, but he just goes with it. He's like, well, I'm in charge. But the moment in this battle that's so cool is when they start to retreat and the big bison is holding up the gate. They're running out. And as the arrows are being shot, they're just like, go for Narnia. And you're like, hell yeah. Booyah! They're not even afraid of death. They're gonna just face it.
And you can see in Peter's eyes that he feels like shit.
That's better than saying anything. Having him feel that and them say for Narnia is so much better than any dialogue you could put there.
You get a close-up shot at him staring at the battlefield. We get a perspective of all these people who are getting the shit kicked out of him, and then cut back to him. And it's just like, you instantly get what he's going through. He feels like shit. He feels like he's failed as a leader. But that only motivates him to try even harder to go by his own way, because he knows for a fact that there is no going back.
But the one shot in the sequence that's particularly excellent is, who's the mouse again?
Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard. When Eddie Izzard's character looks back with remorse, the character is bringing comic relief and sees all their friends dying. That is dark shit.
Oh, absolutely.
That is like, oh crap.
Because like when you look at the mouse, you just see a snarky warrior who wants to prove just how superior than now he is at everyone. And he certainly is. But you can also tell that he still feels a little bit, I don't want to say insecure, but he knows for a fact that there's only so much he can do. Even though he can actually take a soldier down by himself. And the looks on everyone's faces as soon as he does that, where he just goes, man, what were you expecting?
Yeah, running through the mouse. It's a mouse. I've heard that one. It's like a better version of Puss in Boots because it's an actual character, not a punchline, as you were saying.
Yeah, this really should have been how Puss in Boots was, actually having dignity and humor.
Yeah.
Because the great thing about him in Shrek 2 was that he had dignity and humor, especially when he holds off the soldiers for as long as he can. And then in Shrek 3 and 4, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking.
Yeah. But, I mean, and then immediately after this, they get back to the place and they're like, we are doomed. We're all gonna die. And the bad guys are like, I give them credit. The bad guys in this movie are really smart. They're like, well, let's go kill them right now. They don't wait. They name this bad guy king. Let's talk about this bad guy for a minute. General
Miraz? Yeah.
One of these guys in here.
Yeah, that's it right there.
But he's really good. He doesn't have a lot to say, but he just like, I'm gonna kill everything. That's my goal. I'm gonna make animal genocide. That's pretty much his goal in life.
This movie basically takes Claudius from Hamlet and reinvents him in a certain sense. Because he's another younger brother who is never going to be king. He's never going to have the amount of power. And his family is not going to be as fortunate as everyone else. So he felt the need to, like Claudius, get rid of his older brother and make himself king so that he can give his wife and his future son a better life. But doesn't change the fact that he's willing to take any slight mistake that his soldiers make or the Narnians make and twist it around to make them look like they are the villains. He's willing to kill his own soldiers and make it seem as if the Narnians were the ones who ambushed them out of nowhere.
You lost 3 wagons full of weapons. How many soldiers did you lose? None. How many? You're still alive. Like, that sequence was really good for his character there. He's just questioning this man. And we don't know if he's going to kill him or not.
And he's so subtle in his delivery.
It's so well done. Oh my goodness. But that's just, that scene's great. And then they all get back there and they're like, we got to stall for time. Lucy's going on a secret mission because we got to give... Well, Lucy literally has nothing to do this movie. That's the biggest flaw with the writing.
The whole, I can see Aslan, but you can't. I really didn't understand the purpose of it.
But I like that line from Edmund. He's like, remember last time we doubted Lucy? We all looked like idiots.
And that's
that
the great
one's
thing
clever.
About,
that's very clever.
That's the great thing about Edmund. He is the intelligent one in this. And you legitimately believe it because he has gone through so much shit that his other siblings never have. So when Peter is buying into the temptation, he knows good and hell well it doesn't matter what is promised. It doesn't matter what they can gain from it. It's going to fall back on them, especially with the sequence with the White Witch, which was not in the book.
No.
We know that for a fact. But I don't fucking care. The fact that they are so desperate, the fact that they will accept any help from anyone in order to take back Narnia.
Well, it really proves what Prince Caspian is. We see him as someone who's trying to be a leader, who's trying to understand, so he listens to other people, and he listens to Warwick Davis, who summons the White Witch through an ice wall, through a strange witch wall with almost like a Hamlet-like witch creature who just appears and is there, and they're doing this strange, like, Son of Adam thing.
But the best part
crazy.
Edmund's not the only one who realizes it, because there are other people fighting Jadis's followers in the midst of everyone being like sucked in and kind of sort of hypnotized by everything that's going on. And Edmund just taking his sword right through the ice was so rewarding.
Yeah, he's just like, enough of this. I'm done. We did this last movie.
And he gives Peter the same death stare that Peter gave at Edmund for screwing them over in the first place. And he just goes... That's how it feels.
This is done. We're done. But that sequence is particularly incredible. Again with the score, again with the acting, again with the direction, and I like that weird sort of badger witch thing that's there, and just this like, and then I like how Peter Dinklage comes in and just stabs his brother immediately, just like violence on violence, no questions asked. Just, you're bad, I'm gonna stab you.
And the other followers just come out of nowhere like they're the devil on your shoulder.
It's so cool the way they come out. And yeah, because I was watching it and I'm like, wait, where'd they come from? So I rewound it. I'm like, oh, they just sort of appear. It's so dope.
Yeah. And they're
so
fucking hideous to look at, but they know exactly what to say in order to at least let you hear them out in order to summon the spell.
The one thing, when this first came out, we saw the trailer. The White Witch was in the trailer. I wish the sequence hadn't been in the trailer when I saw it, but
that would, yeah, I didn't see the trailer, so.
But that was like they did that moment in the trailer, and I wish they hadn't.
That's fair.
And then they get to this, and then they decide to do this like big. They have to duel the king, and they send Edmund there. And I like how the general guys, who's now the king, is like, "You're what? I'm the High King." Oh. He just doesn't accept it. It's
like,
a very good
Prince
moment.
Pevensey? I'm like, it's King Edmund. Peter is High King. It's very confusing. I don't really like it.
He just doesn't accept it. And then he looks around at everyone else. He's like, well, I guess I gotta fight him. And then we get a really great duel, which is really nice because we get 3-part action. We get castle siege, sword fight, and then final battle. And I like the 3-part action. They're learning from Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings does that very well.
Sure.
But the duel's pretty great. I love how they're both equally matched. Like Peter and this guy, they both want to desperately be a leader, but they both want to lead for different reasons. So when they fight, they both have the same level of skill, and they both are not great fighters. They try.
They injure each other so easily. When do you see that in anything Disney related?
Yeah, no, and they draw blood in a Disney movie here.
Yeah,
on the one arm of whatever.
Granted, it's not for that long, but it didn't really need
and
to
he
be.
pops out Peter's arm that has to be put back into place, and Edmund is like,
God.
I learned how to replace limbs. Don't you worry, I got this. That was like, wait, when did he learn to do that?
Exactly.
Did Santa Claus come along and give him a medical book?
Dude, really?
But then we get the General Gozelle, played by a very long name.
I don't know.
Pier
I thought
Francesco Favino.
I just call him Sirio because he looks like Sirio Pharrell.
And he kills them and he says, all right, we're going to crush them because they murdered the king. And they're freeing the Narnians once again. And we get this incredible battle sequence. We get to start off with running underneath the field.
Yeah.
As they're bringing the earth down below the cavalry.
And you think for a fact that they're escaping, that they're pulling back. But then once they're knocking down all of the pillars that are holding this place down, and the entire battlefield is collapsing so that the Narnia soldiers can just pounce on the humans and kick their asses.
Yeah, this was the coolest moment in theaters. Like
there
watching this, oh my goodness.
Catapults launching these giant ass rocks
but
that
they're
even the
automated
hippogriffs
and they go
can't
around in
deal
a circle.
with.
Yeah.
The trees are coming to life in a way that I've never seen before, where they're walking on their roots. Their roots and their branches are the ones that are defeating the soldiers. And I'm just sitting there.
And when the first hippogriff or whatever the flying thing goes down and it crash lands into soldiers and the horses just go over top of it like it's nothing.
And it sacrifices
so
itself
cool.
by just plummeting it right into
it takes up like 5 guys
catapult.
and everyone else is like, we got this, we're good. I like how they all have this strange face mask. It's better than Nameless Faceless Soldier because they're all people.
Again, it just fits that Spanish Inquisition outlook towards it.
Meanwhile, Lucy's running away or something.
There's a little suspense to it because they're losing the battle, and it's important that Lucy find Aslan. And they've already accepted the fact that Aslan is out there somewhere just talking to Lucy because Lucy has the most amount of faith.
Because Lucy in the sky with diamonds.
I do like that the movie is a little bit more about faith in a natural way. It isn't faith in like a higher power or anything. It's faith in yourself. It's faith in your friends and your family. And it executes that a hell of a lot.
Faith in your ability. I mean, I love at this moment where they all think they can't do it. So they go to retreat. And then the catapults immediately crush the entrance. So they're just surrounded and they're battling it out like it's like Infinity War where there's none of them left and they're melting away. And I do think the one sequence with the underground tunnels, Skyfall did do that really well with the subway.
I don't remember Skyfall doing that.
The subway falls in like right when they're chasing.
I don't know. I felt that this was a lot better because it pulls the rug under you. Like I said, you're expecting them to fall back, but it turns out they're just literally leveling out the playing fields for themselves. And even the Deus Ex Machina of the ocean coming to life and just smashing the bridge.
These guys just get annihilated. Like, the people come up from the ground, they're running away, they're going this way, he's retreating, they're retreating, and then, I don't know why there's a giant water being that Aslan can summon, but it's freaking cool.
Exactly.
It's so dope. I'm just sitting there, and it's like, I'm watching this, because I watched this at like 1 a.m. I'm watching this, and I'm like, that is so cool. It makes no damn sense, but I love it. And like, the water is like doing this, and then, like, it's just such a thrilling 3-part battle sequence. It's so well executed. And it's most of the movie. They're like, here's a bunch of fights. I like that. Really like that.
And again, like, it makes the strategy of it interesting because everyone has a legitimately valid way of actually trying to win this war. And what nobody wants to admit to is that whether or not they succeed, a lot of it comes down to chance.
And I like when they defeat everyone. It's a really cool battle. So I highly recommend, even if you just watch the battle sequence on YouTube, you should. But when Aslan's there and all of them are bowing to Aslan because he's like the guy, and like he says, "Rise, kings and queens," but Prince Caspian doesn't get up because he doesn't think he's worthy to be a king. Aslan has just sent Ben Barnes on a journey of self-worth and having faith in himself. And then he says, all of you. And it's a really great moment.
It was
Phenomenal.
Wonderful.
So, but this one's amazing. You just sort of have to watch this movie.
Yeah, like, we didn't give that many specific details when it comes to Prince Caspian, but that's mostly because the less you know about this going in, the better.
Oh, and the mouse is awesome.
Yeah, we can't sell it enough. Reepicheep might be one of the best characters.
And you can see a little bit of CG Wayne, but mostly only on some of the centaurs, but the movie looks really good otherwise.
Did they have a bigger budget this time around? Because it seemed like the effects were a major step up. Because like the CGI on the Narnia creatures looks a lot better, but the practical work on just about everyone, ranging from the Minotaurs, the Centaurs, even with the dwarves, because like Peter Dinklage had to go for a lot of makeup to look less like himself. Warwick Davis is no stranger to makeup.
Okay, so the first one had a budget of $180 million. The second one had a budget of $225 million, and the third one had a budget of $145 million.
Okay, so like they had a lot more money on their hands in order to make this larger, much more epic, tons of wide shots that make Narnia and the other country look absolutely
They used their
stunning.
money well. They used every last cent to make it look... This is a great film.
It's unbelievably meticulous in its execution.
And it's the longest of them. It's 2.5 hours. The other ones are like 2 hours roughly.
Not by much.
The length is perfect. The pacing's good. I think the beginning's like... At first I thought it was slow, but then I realized they were building to something really great.
I like the beginning in the neighboring country where it establishes a mystery surrounding who Caspian is, because right away the professor has to hide Caspian and get him to sneak out of the castle because Miraz has an entire firing squad of archers just to shoot him while he sleeps.
But he's also a very intelligent villain. As soon as he sees any danger, he's like, build a bridge, take any men you need. All right, taking the whole army right over here. Oh, it's an ambush. Let me knock that out. Let me go and kill them right away. Oh, I'm going to fight these guys? Oh, you shoot that guy if I lose. Like, this guy's prepared. This guy's not a stupid bad guy. He's very, very intelligent.
And as much as he's convinced that he's right, he has no problem just, again, like Tilda Swinton, relishing in how much pain and misery that he's giving Caspian, especially when Caspian confronts him in his bedroom and he gloats about how his father died. Right in front of his wife, who just sits there and goes, "You did this for me and for the boy? You disgust me. I can't believe I didn't know this.
We're wasting time in this standoff. We have to get the gate open."
But yeah, like, as plot convenient as it was, it still works. The drama was there. I actually remember Miraz's wife being disgusted by her husband's actions, which is saying a lot, because I don't even remember her having a line or two.
I mean, she has more to do than most Scarlett Johansson performances in Marvel movies.
I really don't agree with that, but...
Well...
I'm not saying Scarlett Johansson's been wasted this entire time, but
she does some stuff sometimes. That's the key. But like all the characters are everyone except for Lucy is great in this movie once again.
Yeah,
Lucy's like,
and even that, like, the actress
the
isn't doing a bad job.
No, it's just she's not given material to work with.
No, and I keep forgetting that it's Peter Dinklage as Trumpkin because he's basically playing Tyrion all over again. Someone who has no faith in humanity left whatsoever. He only starts to serve as mentor to the Pevensies because, as useless as they are in the given moment, he knows that if he sticks with them, they're going to serve a much higher purpose. And I like that he grows a legit camaraderie with Susan and Lucy in particular, because Lucy, being Lucy, is the most polite and compassionate towards him. And he's very quick to return that favor towards
There's that really sweet line, sort of like the no one throws a dwarf bit, where she calls him like his little friend or something, or sweet little friend, and then he uses it back at her, like, you know, it's really nice.
Especially when she goes off on horse to find Aslan, and when the other soldiers are chasing her, it actually felt suspenseful because everyone's losing in the final battle. She's outnumbered. You don't realize that someone else has been falling behind just to make sure that she makes it there in time, which the reveal that Caspian was falling behind to make sure that she was okay, like, great character moment.
And yeah, this would have been Peter Dinklage right in the middle of Game of Thrones. He probably would have been filming the second or third season at this point.
2008? I don't know.
2000. Oh, right before that. That's probably why he got the Game of Thrones bit.
More than likely, it wouldn't surprise me if this was what got him.
Oh, look, he's starring in a movie called The Dwarf, and he's the dwarf. Surprise, Hollywood.
Wow, after calling out Hollywood and making 7 little people lose their fucking jobs for one movie, this is what you do next.
He's also in the Toxic Avenger reboot.
I don't fucking care. I didn't watch Cyrano because what he said and the consequences from that were just fucking stupid.
It's okay.
No, it's not okay that he.
No, the movie Cyrano. I don't know too much about the comics. So.
Oh, okay.
The movie's fine. It's just sort of a period musical and it put me to sleep a bit.
Oh.
Nothing wrong with it. It's just they don't care about French period musicals.
I wouldn't know. I was kind of looking forward to it, and then I realized it's another love triangle movie, and I just sat there and went, no. Really
it's Romeo and Juliet, in a nutshell. But so that's our favorite, as we previously stated. I love this movie.
It's fantastic. Maybe one of the best live action Disney movies ever made, because it took so many chances, and I guess they got the impression that it didn't pay off, because when they were doing interviews for Don Shredder, they made it sound like, okay, we're going to make this one the most faithful of the adaptations. We're not going to lose ourselves like we did with the second one. And I'm just sitting there going, what the fuck are you talking about? Making it more mature and dark was a step forward, because it makes a hell of a lot more sense for these characters.
Okay, so it cost $225 million to make. It made $419 million at the box office, so it probably maybe cleared $50 million, so it wasn't as much as you would think.
No, and so, I think part of that was because I think Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe just came out at the best time that it could have, and afterwards, it wouldn't have made a difference.
People did not like this movie when it came out.
Yeah, see, like Mark Johnson right there saying, we made some mistakes with Prince Caspian and I don't want to make them again. I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I think this was a great mistake, if that's what you're worried about.
Prince Caspian lacked some of the wonder and magic of Narnia and a bit too rough for families. It's just like, no!
No, families need to see something that's not sanitized completely.
There is wonder and magic of Narnia. I mean, for starters, the Narnians are actually in the fucking movie. Mm-hmm. Second of all, the stone table sequence is technically darker than certain moments in this movie.
I think people just didn't like this one.
Hell, the White Witch sequence literally takes place where the stone table was before. I mean, you want to talk about irony.
Yeah.
And not to mention, the Warwick Davis character is apparently like a descendant of Jadis's annoying henchman from the first movie, which I really wonder how he had descendants in the first place, but, you know.
Well, they didn't really explain that. They sort of brushed over that and went to the cool parts.
That's fair. But
and that's what this movie's strength is. It's 100% they show you the cool parts, they give you enough to do it, and latch onto the characters that are important. They show you
and they flesh out the characters, too.
Yeah, even the minor characters have a lot more to do. But let's talk about the Don Shredder here. I didn't hate this. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. I just thought it was very inconsistent.
It is disappointing, and when you want to talk inconsistent, especially when it comes to the first two movies, this sticks out like a sore thumb. So for those who don't know, it takes place a little while after Prince Caspian. Mm-hmm. Peter and Susan, for whatever reason, have moved with their parents to America, but Edmund and Lucy...
But they never see their father, regardless.
No idea why Edmund and Lucy have to stay with their cousin Eustace, played by Will Poulter.
He's annoying.
And we'll talk more about him later on. But
this movie wastes no time. They're just like, here's the annoying cousin, here's Peter and Lucy. Oh, look, the room's flooded. We're in Narnia.
I love how they enter Narnia, where a painting is starting to leak and it just sprays water right out of the frame. And the fact that they're holding the frame literally holding the picture frame within the frame of the movie, and it's still spraying out water. And I'm just sitting there going, that might be one of the best effects in these movies because of how seamless it is.
Yeah, no, they're just immediately in Narnia. They get picked up by a boat, and the first thing we see, the mouse is back. I like the mouse. He's back. He's hanging out. He's like, Your Highness. I like him. He's cool.
Yeah,
Simon Pegg.
so we're not entirely sure why Eddie Izzard didn't come back for this one, but Reepicheep this time around is played by Simon Pegg. And Izzard was really good. Izzard was funny and had that minor dramatic heft of being a little insecure. But in this one, Simon Pegg owns every second he has. He puts 110% into the voice work. It's absolutely insane. It's almost as if he was there doing the motion capture work. I don't think he was, but it would have been pretty cool if he did.
Well, we find out there's no conflict in Narnia right away. That's very disappointing.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening. They're just on a boat. And they're going fast in. They got their Pashmina Afghans. They're the king of the boat. They're on the world like Leo.
So Edmund and Lucy meet up with Caspian, who is king and is kind of sort of captain of the Dawn Treader. And they're just like, so, what's so important that you decided to call on us?
Oh,
and it's just like, I didn't call you. It's been a couple of years as king. And yeah, it's, as Mel Brooks said, it's good to be the king. And they're just like, okay, so why are we here?
And so
I don't know, but let's go sailing.
The entire purpose of this scene is just to see Will Porter faint twice because he doesn't believe animals can talk. It didn't work for me.
Yeah, let's just get the worst part of this movie out of the way. And look, it's not Will Poulter's fault.
Mm-hmm.
He is still giving a good performance within this. And if he was given some actual good snarky humor, his personality would have actually offset the other characters nicely. But it's the same nagging complaint that he makes over and over and over again. And what I don't understand is that he's supposed to be this insane bookworm who has an explanation for everything. And yet he has no explanation as to why these animals and a half-man, half-horse are talking in front of him, but he still doesn't believe that they're there. He doesn't say, oh, well, it must be some polluted air, or it must be some toxins in the water or anything. He gives no explanation.
The only thing this scene does is sets him up, which for, I think, the only humor I really laughed at, where he's sitting and trying to talk to a seagull and all the talking animals laugh at him for talking to a seagull. That's actually funny because he thinks that seagulls can talk.
There's that one bit where he's trying to escape and he goes on a boat and he's just like, oh, in this magical land, I don't have a boat that rows itself. Like, that was actually kind of decent.
Actually, all the Narnia movies are written by the people who wrote Endgame, Infinity War, Captain America movies. All of them are written by these.
That doesn't surprise
Christopher Marker and Stephen McFeely. They wrote all the Narnia movies. You have the same writers back, and that would be obviously the consistency. So they eventually just end up going to chase magical mist across the universe. There's some slave trader side plot.
Yeah, so they show up at this one random abandoned building that turns out not to be abandoned, and the people do not recognize Caspian as their king, which they do call that out, I will admit.
So they immediately sell them into slavery.
And anyone who is not accepted as a slave is being thrown onto these boats to serve as a sacrifice for some kind of green mist.
The Silver Surfer in space is back.
And the weird thing is, apparently the villain in this is a villain that carries over in the other book, The Silver Chair, but, like, there's no reference. The mist has no human form whatsoever. There's no hidden voiceover work or anything like that.
You know, the villain could have been a Skybeam and I would have known the difference. Except it's tall instead of misty. It's sort of vague and boring.
Honestly, it would have been a little more interesting if the villain could actually, like, infiltrate characters' heads and, which they kind of try and go for. There's one moment where Edmund is allegedly being tempted by the White Witch once again.
But he just sort of shattered the last one, so it doesn't really work.
So it makes absolutely no sense why he's afraid of her. Especially because she has nothing to offer him in return for being tempted.
No.
She doesn't bring up anyone who he screwed over in the past, even though they're standing right in front of him.
And these temptation sequences and the setup of getting the seven swords, it's a neat idea, but like Lucy being tempted after being a queen for 100 years of wanting to be her sister is a really neat sequence. It just doesn't belong in this movie. It belongs in something like Last Night in Soho. That would be more what it would belong in. It reminds me of that.
I think we skipped over Edmund and Lucy's motivations in the real world. Edmund wants to be a soldier in World War II, just like Peter did in the second one, but of course he's not old enough.
Hey, are you going to help me with the groceries? Because you got to.
I would have done this. Hey, I would have done the same thing. He had it coming.
That's a quirky little scene.
And Lucy just wants to look like her sister.
Because she saw someone brush their hair back and think men are attractive, and her sister's going to a place like a consulate with something. I don't know. It doesn't really work. I think the sequences are really cool. They just don't belong in the movie.
Yeah, there's a sequence where Lucy sees Susan's reflection in the mirror, and there's this other moment where she imagines she's Susan in America with Peter and Edmund. And I do like the fact that Peter and Susan actually do show up as a cameo.
But I like how the movie, regardless of whether the sequences work or not, have the guts to do like these horror-esque crazy sequences. Like it has like it's trying something. And it doesn't work. But it tries, and I appreciate that.
And it's psychological, too, where it's just like, don't you remember all the times in Narnia? And they're just so nonchalantly like, Narnia? What's Narnia?
What's that?
What the fuck's going on here? Susan, what are you getting so upset for? My name's not Susan,
and then it just
Lucy.
cuts to a mirror, and Aslan's like, why would you do that? Then it cuts to her waking up, and it's just like, it's going for horror elements, and I like that it's taking the risks, it just doesn't pay off.
Yeah, like, it's too simplistic of a motivation. And with everything that's going on, everything that you just witnessed in the first two movies, and even in this one, because there are characters who are going through rough times. Like, the big thing is that the big mission of this movie is just to rescue a bunch of peasants from being sacrificed.
Yeah, there's that random
plot.
I forgot about that. There's the dad and the daughter, and the dad's like, I'm gonna go save my wife and leave my daughter here. And the daughter's on board. She smuggled herself in. Oh no, they're not gonna be mentioned till it's solved.
Exactly.
But I think that one sequence at the end, particularly with the daughter, where she says, she looks at Lucy and she's like, I want to be like you. She's like, you should be like you. And I think that's a touching moment. I think it
was good.
That's nice, but I think you could have cut that. I don't think we need that.
You easily could have cut that.
They could have said, hey, can you go rescue those people? And it wouldn't matter who it was.
No, it really
So they eventually get to a magical island with a pool full of gold where they argue randomly, sort of reminiscent of like Fantasy Island where they were all double-crossing each other. So that's weird. And then there's gold, and the one guy turns into a dragon, and then they see the star, and I don't really care about this part.
See, truth be told, there's so much I don't remember. I think we're glancing over that one part where Lucy gets turned invisible by these other invisible one-legged dwarves or something like that.
What are those things
they
called?
Look like one-legged dwarves.
The pogo sticks.
Yeah. And it does have a great moment where Lucy is walking into this one house. Mm-hmm. It's mainly told through visuals with no dialogue whatsoever, where the pages are actually coming to life and showing her deepest desires and what these little tidbits that she needs in order to basically, I don't know, find the 7 lords that existed during Prince Caspian's dad's rulership.
Exposition dump.
See how forgettable this movie is?
They have to get the 7 swords on the table.
7 swords and the 7 lords who are like...
When the 7 swords and the 7 lords all get together, they're going to turn into weird tree creatures.
Yeah, and the 7 lords are like Sleeping Beauty-fied in the fact that they're like in 100-year sleep or some shit like that.
Yeah, because they tried to...
And there's this...
A monopod. That's what they're called.
What the fuck?
It's a monopod. That's what they're called in the C.S. Lewis.
It was the fucking picture that you just showed.
Oh, yeah, no. They're monopods. Thing.
Granted, they're not as...
They're like one-footed hobbits.
Yeah, and ironically not as annoying as 2-legged hobbits, weirdly enough.
It just sort of felt like a detour so we could have some plot.
Yeah, and while it's definitely a change of pace in regards to Narnia creatures that are a little more upbeat compared to the other characters who are so snarky and cynical, it's just they don't do anything funny other than bounce up and down, and the guy who cursed them to be invisible says, I did this for your own good.
Yeah, they're gonna get eaten by the weird sea dragon thing that doesn't exist until I make it exist in my mind because I'm Edmund.
Don't ask me why I just put him on a ship and have them annoy the mist to death, which honestly would have served more of a purpose.
Yeah, so back on this island, they finally get to their exposition, they find the MacGuffin, and,
there's this, like, map that kind of exists, like the Treasure Planet map, where it just goes all over the room.
Yeah.
And then it just segues to them being back on the boat again.
Yeah, but the best part is the stupid kid gets turned into a dragon and can't talk. And it's the best thing ever.
And I will say this, apparently in the book, it takes a while for them to realize that it is Eustace, but I like that Eustace actually grabs Edmund and shows this fiery note that he wrote on the island that said, "I am Eustace," and Edmund just goes, "You gotta be fucking kidding."
But then that actually does work, because the dragon I like. When he teams up with the mouse and the dragon being friends together, that's a good pairing. That's fun. A lot of fun.
The best part of this movie is Simon Pegg and Will Poulter bouncing off of each other. Because if there's anyone that Will Poulter hates more than his cousins, it's Reepicheep for just how cocky and confident he is in his abilities. But Reepicheep knows for a fact that if he acts just as self-centered and ungrateful as Eustace does towards his insults, it's not going to change anything. So Reepicheep actually is incredibly patient and understanding with him. There's this great sword fight where as they're fighting, Reepicheep is telling him how to posture himself, when to strike. So he's actually teaching him while putting him down at the exact same time. And Eustace actually picks up on it. And while he won't admit it, he appreciates it. That's a great
The diary gag there is actually... The diary gag is used very sparingly. And we see his diary at the beginning, but he's like, day whatever. He's like, we're all on the boats. Everyone is miserable, except for Rapatap. And I don't get it. and he's just like on the bow. He's like, adventure.
The narration was pretty pointless.
But it was like a one-off gag, and it wasn't overly in the movie too much. It was like, that's it. Just one and done.
It's just another excuse to have him nagging over and over again.
Yeah.
He's one of those characters who says, I want to come with you. Why? You're completely useless. I don't care. And then proceeds to run away like a little bitch.
I don't believe in fairy tales. Why don't you read history?
Which is exactly why I'm going to be tempted by all these riches and gold, and that's why I get turned into a dragon. Because I'm that stupid.
I love how Edmund's like, oh, they're not going to accept him back home. Like, that's his first thought. He's like, how are we going to explain this? Like, not how we're going to turn it back, like, oh, his aunt's going to be pissed.
Wherever she is, because all we get is the uncle who's covered with a newspaper.
It's like Charlie from Charlie's Angels. He's there. We just can't see him.
Exactly.
But then they go to the mist. They finally locate the mist, and Edmund, basically, we Stay Puft Marshmallow Man this shit, so... He instead of imagining Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, he imagines a giant thing, and the dragon's got to help, and then they unite all the swords or something.
I do like how there's this suspense with not thinking of your worst fears, and then Edmund just goes, oh no. Edmund, I'm sorry, okay? It just happened, and I just sat there and I'm like, okay, that was funny. I'll give it that.
The finale's but what is this scene with the swords and the weird, what's with the weird lady who glows? She's like...
I was hoping you would bring that up.
It's just Cate Blanchett from Lord of the Rings, but she's not narrating or doing anything important, and she's like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can eat because I don't get it.
I don't understand what happened. I mean, the setup, the way she's introduced where she's so happy and cheerful and she's this ominous glow, meanwhile they're surrounded by people who are hypnotized into being asleep and are covered by branches and roots and shit like that. And there's all this food that
don't
probably
eat it,
shouldn't
poison.
Eat, but it turns out that food actually was for Caspian and friends, so they eat it and nothing bad happens.
Yeah, the one bison, he's like about to take a bite, he just drops it. That's a clever moment.
Yeah, because he knows, you know what, maybe these fairy tales are true.
She just sort of shows up and she's like, I'm not evil. I thought she was going to turn evil and try to murder them, and then they would have to put the swords together and defeat her.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Was the setup supposed to be that unintentionally creepy?
I don't know what that was.
And then all of a sudden, she and Caspian want to hit that for some reason?
Edmund and them are like, I can change form. No, don't do that. What was that character's name?
Her name is something's daughter, because I don't know. No, that's not it.
I'm gonna find who she is. Yeah,
no,
all of a sudden, Chronicles of Narnia became horny. I don't know.
I mean, I remember it more than Caspian and Susan. That was a complete waste of time that didn't need to be there.
Oh yeah, that's right. They kissed in the last movie.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, her last time in Narnia might as well.
Oh, that's right. She's at the train station. Some nerd's like, "Hi, how are you?" "Oh, I like to be alone." "I like to be alone too."
I have a gun, bitch. Move it. Okay, so
I gotta figure out who this is.
Something's daughter. I think it starts with an X or something like that. Or maybe they gave her a name.
I'm gonna Google glowing lady Prince Caspian.
See how pointless this is?
No,
ladies
it's
and
sort of
gentlemen?
like when you're watching Top Gun and all of a sudden it just becomes like dudes into dudes when they're playing volleyball, then goes back to airplanes. Like, it just happens and we accept it.
It turns into the Fire Nation volleyball match from Avatar.
I think I've actually seen that.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
I gotta look this up, but
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
What?
It's just so strange.
Lilliander.
Yeah, but it's just I don't know. It's like if Ava Max was in Chronicles of Narnia and then went away.
And when they looked at her, they thought they had never before known what beauty meant.
I'll look this up. Is this in the book?
That's a fucking line.
Dawn
folks.
Treader. Let's look this up. Where's the Voyage of the Dawn Treader?
I don't know.
There's a lion.
Oh my god! Did you see that?
The wife of King was the.
She marries Caspian?
Maybe that's his dead wife.
No, there's no way that's possible. Well,
Okay, we gotta figure this out.
Caspian the 10. Okay, as long as Caspian the 10. Oh shit, no. Yeah, she does marry Prince Caspian.
He marries a weird glowing ghost lady.
She marries a moon goddess or
Great.
something.
Love it.
I don't know.
I'm gonna find this. Oh, look at this! All his journaling here. There's tons of journaling from Eustace. He just journals like crazy. They must have pulled this from the book.
Tune in next week on Josh and Tyler's random shit about Narnia.
I gotta figure out where Lilith is in the book. I really need to know. I want to read some of this dialogue.
Apparently she doesn't have a name in the books. She's just someone's daughter or someone. Yeah, she's just Ramando's daughter.
Is she on the Lone Islands? Is it? No.
Maybe.
I don't know. There's Adventures
Look,
of
the
Eustace.
point is.
I gotta know.
Look, the point is, it turns into like a horror porno for a little bit. Not exactly in the way you would intend, and it's nowhere near as exciting either. But
Oh, I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's in here somewhere.
it's ridiculous. And minor thing.
So, you know, if
I talked about how Edmund was my favorite character in here, but he honestly, there's no reason for him to actually be on this voyage.
you
And
could
he
have
goes
given the
through-
character development to Lucy. She deserved it after 2 movies.
And he goes through pretty much the exact same arc that Peter did, where he has this incredibly pointless rivalry
But this
with
time,
Caspian.
he has cool emo hair that's stroked to the side. No, seriously. He's got emo hair. All he needs is...
I was really
He's
hoping
like
you would bring
steampunk.
that up.
He's like a steampunk emo. He's like, I listen to My Chemical Romance, only the covers of Bards.
No, that's what Pattinson's Bruce Wayne does.
I like Patterson's Bruce Wayne, though. It's
So
very
did
unique,
I.
and it's a good take.
So did I, but in Brad Jones's review, apparently an audience member of his just sat there and went, yeah, he collects every My Chemical Romance album, and it's just like, so what? But yeah, I get that Edmund is going through the same thing Peter did, where after being a king and a badass, he goes right back to being a peasant and obviously wants to get in on the action. He wants to do his dad proud and such. But here's the thing. You're obviously not going to be second in command on Battle of the Bulge.
Okay.
So, like, being Prince Caspian's second in command on this voyage, you got something even better than what you're asking for.
You gotta
So
check
what
this
are you
out.
still
This
being
is
so
the
bitter
this is
about?
the love child of Prince Caspian, Lillian. What is that? It's like...
Are you going to put a picture of that up here? Okay, good.
It's like it's one of the kids in the hall did drag in the show.
Kids in the hall did do
Whatever,
drag.
Dave, whatever his name is. But yeah.
That's wow.
That-
could you click on that? Maybe they might pull up.
Does
a
it tell
close-up.
us what it's from?
Oh my god.
That is terrifying. What is that? Is that a doll?
That's
We're gonna put that on screen.
No, that's one of the bearded ladies from The Greatest Showman.
But the bearded lady in The Greatest Showman was super talented, and that was great. I loved it.
Well, who's the actor? Let's
Figure out who this is.
Richard Hender.
Richard, this is the BBC miniseries. Don't watch the BBC miniseries, y'all. It's awful. He looks normal in real life.
Yeah.
I've seen him in other things.
No. You know who he reminds me of? Did you ever watch The Elephant Show as a kid?
The Elephant Show.
Where it's like Sharon Lois and Bram, those
singers.
singers.
Skinamarink-a-dink-a-dink,
Yeah.
skinamarink-a-dink.
He's the creepy guy with the beard. He looks like Eric Nagler.
He looks like if Emerson, Lake, and Palmer were one person.
Skinamarink-a-dink-a-dink, skinamarink-a-doo.
What's that one?
I
What's
wish
the
I
spider
fit the
sing?
shoe.
What's the spider song they do? Yeah, like this.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I forget
When
what
did
this
this
show
become
was.
a Sharon Lois and... Why did I bring this up?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember this.
Maybe because I'm sick of people looking at me like an Eric
one
Nagler.
elephant went out to play along a spider's web one day. Oh, a 50-minute song compilation.
No. Just click Skinamarink. In fact, do you want to just close out this? Do you want to close out this video by singing Skinamarink?
Yes. Tyler, tell us where we can find it. I will get this ready. Where can we find you?
Oh, are we already done?
Yeah, this is the end of the show. We've done all the things.
Okay, well...
What else is there left to talk about? I don't really care for this last movie as much. I don't hate it. I don't dislike...
Well, other than the fact that The Voyage of the Dawn Treader is basically a Pirates of the Caribbean sequel more than it is a Narnia movie.
Voyage of the Yawn Treader, am I right?
Basically. Because, I mean, it's much more... The musical score is a lot more whimsical and softer. The action scenes feel more like a Pirates action sequence, where it's more... Or a Zorro fight sequence, because I think Legend of Zorro came out
Zorro
a
is
couple
better.
weeks.
Martin Campbell's a great director.
Well, except for Legend of Zorro, he really shit the bed on
There
that
was some
one.
good action sequences in that, though, and he did revive Bond twice.
That's true. But, yeah, it just... They really dropped the ball on this one. It's not that bad of a movie, because like we said, the actors are all fine. There are a couple characters that stand out. I do like Prince Caspian's commandeer of the Dawn Treader. That captain actually was a level-headed mentor. I have no idea what the character's name is. And
That's the guy who him and his daughter randomly saw them at the end of the movie.
No, not that guy. The guy that was actually in charge of the ship.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Yeah. I just remember, he seems smart. I like him. And they actually have a nice back and forth over whether or not to turn the ship back or to risk their lives.
For $145 million, they could have done better.
They could have actually made it about Narnia, because... Is there even a scene in this movie that takes place in Narnia?
Technically, the Lone Islands are part of Narnia. It's all
Really?
in Narnia, yeah. See? Here's the Narnia map. We'll
I
open the
wouldn't
map.
know.
Let's open the map.
Liam Neeson is still good as Aslan, even though the CGI on him makes him look a little
Oh,
ridiculous.
no, the Lone Islands aren't in Narnia. They're not even in Narnia.
False advertising,
So they go to
bitch.
Yeah, they're all the way over here. They're on the water coast, far away from Narnia. Remember, if you try to steal rations, specifically oranges, the mice will get you. But what are we checking out on your channel? What reviews can we see, Tyler?
Well, stay tuned. You may see Ham and I talk about Turning Red, the latest Pixar movie that the people who love it are asking, why is this getting so much hate? The people who don't like it, myself included, are wondering what exactly
Sort
people
of in
saw
the
in
middle.
this to begin
I'm
with.
just sort of on it.
It's
Some things I like and then a lot I don't like. It's just like meh.
It'll be interesting, and I may or may not have a review coming up of the Hyperions, and I'm not going to talk about where that
I have
came
no
from,
clue what that
'cause
is. I'll just watch the review.
I'll tell you once the cameras stop rolling.
All right.
Once we serenade the Chronicles of Narnia to
Yes.
Sharon, Lois, and Bram.
And check out Tyler's channel, Tyler with 2S for fucking fantastic. Check out PB&J, pretty much Ben and Josh. I'm the peanut butter. He's the jam. We do stupid shit. And let's go. Let's see if we remember the lyrics. I think I remember like the
I
opening
do,
line.
because I actually did see this clip once or twice.
Oh man, that is a elephant on a chair. You're not going to see the video. You're just going to get this described to you.
Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink,
Skinnamarink-a-doo. I love you. It's like he's got intestinal problems.
Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink-a-doo. I love you.
I love. Oh no, they're doing the arms like. Love you in the morning and in the afternoon. It's the afternoon, like midnight.
Love you in the evening.
Yeah, let me just go down on my dick here.
Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink-a-doo. I love you. I love you. I love you. We'll
I'm
see you
40
next
years
time,
old.
guys.
I love